In a grand, snow-covered estate, Matthias von Mont, Duke of the North, sternly demands a report on his daughter's spirit. A butler and several maids tremble in fear as the butler struggles to explain that the daughter's spirit is, well, slamming his fists on the table. The Duke roars for them to answer him quickly. He proudly recalls his daughter's spirit, a magnificent blue wolf that rules the north. Narration clarifies that her spirit is neither a powerful eagle nor a swift hawk. Instead, to someone's disbelief, her spirit animal is revealed to be a cute little chicken. A young woman with long pink hair sighs, thinking that her father is entering his mad dog mode again. An informational panel explains that animal-shaped spirits are known as familia. Another panel shows a girl embracing a dog, describing familias as one's most reliable best friend. The Duke's icy blue eyes flash with power, mirroring the feral gaze of his glowing wolf spirit. Standing beside his snarling wolf familiar, the Duke enters a state his daughter calls mad dog mode, officially known as berserk. The pink-haired woman sighs with her arms crossed, regretting that she ever opened a particular text file. She recalls how her life completely changed as the servants watch her father's power rage from outside a frosted window. Looking back, she remembers that this all began exactly 6 months ago. The story she was reading was a romance fantasy novel set in the Middle Ages, filled with magic, spirits, and gods. It was a classic fairy tale story, featuring witches and fairies among its cast. A close-up shows the eyes of the brown-haired woman who was reading the novel. She recalls feeling that something was strange about the story, remembering how she took over for the villain. Reading on her phone, she was horrified, thinking the villain couldn't just let the world fall to ruin. After dropping her phone, she reflects on the villainess Lenya, who died by suicide to help the hero, and feels deep pity for her. She laments Lenya's tragic life, treated poorly by her family, and dying without ever being loved. Staring at her phone in bed, the woman is still reeling from the story's tragic events. Suddenly, a bright light engulfs her as she falls backward in shock, questioning what is happening. Reborn as Lenya, she's confronted by a maid who insists she must train and summon a spirit today. Lenya sits on her bed, looking dazed, trying to process the maid's urgent command. Clutching her chest in shock, she fully realizes her new identity, Lenya von Mont. As a brush glides through her pink hair, she recalls how emotionally invested she was in the tragic villain. While a maid styles her hair, Lenya sits with a distant expression, lost in thought. She thinks that if she'd been happy in her past life, she would have despaired at being taken away. A flashback reveals her former self as a lonely girl, huddled in the dark, implying her life was far from happy. She muses on the original Lenya's potential, who became a powerful villainess and even changed the male lead's heart. Recalling the story's progression, she thinks that this is where happiness is supposed to begin. She identifies her father as the main obstacle to Lenya's happiness, as a butler begs him to calm down. The Duke's aura freezes and shatters a glass of water, signaling his escalating rage. Lenya rushes forward, determined to stop him, and debating whether to play her trump card. With newfound resolve, she decides to act not just as his daughter, but as his reincarnated daughter. Her father turns, his expression shifting from rage to confusion as he questions her. Lenya announces she needs to speak with him, prompting her father to dismiss the stunned servants. With a serious expression, she walks past the departing servants, heading toward her father. The Duke leans over his desk, challenging her to give him a good excuse for her behavior. Lenya begins her explanation, stating that she was born weak in exchange for her mother's life. A flashback shows her beautiful, red-haired mother cradling her pregnant belly with a serene smile. She concludes that her poor health caused a delay in summoning her familia. The Duke's spirit growls, acknowledging that she seems to understand her place. In a cute chibi form, Lenya apologizes profusely, thinking she has always felt sorry. A powerful spirit appears, declaring that without a powerful spirit of her own, she can't possess strong spiritual powers. Another woman looks on in disgust, unable to believe Lenya is related by blood to her and the beloved Lilia. Lenya listens to the harsh words, her expression one of utter shock. Her father looks at her, visibly taken aback by her sudden change in demeanor. Lenya notes his surprise, realizing the original Lenya had always been insistent on avoiding political marriages. She internally declares that she is not like the original tragic Lenya. Her father, the Duke, looks at her in surprise, questioning her sudden change of heart regarding marriage. Lenya faces him with determination, stating that she doesn't want to cause him any more pain. Standing by a large window, she thinks to herself that it's time for her to leave this house. The Duke, his back turned to her, quietly affirms her decision. She confidently decides that His Royal Highness Prince Adrian is a fine choice for a husband. Lenya resolves to reform Ed, the story's mastermind, by becoming the person closest to him, admitting she has always been curious about the mysterious character. As she imagines being held by him, she admits her true desire was to change Ed's tragic fate. Her father stares back at her, completely stunned by her proposal. Reading her father's expression, Lenya correctly guesses he thinks she's not only useless, but also has terrible taste in men. The Duke clutches his head in frustration, asking if she truly understands Prince Adrian's political standing. Lenya calmly confirms she does, recalling that he is not of the Empress's bloodline, and that she chose him fully aware of this fact. Narration reveals a shocking secret. While the world believes Ed is human, he is actually a half-demon, born of the Emperor and a demon. Seeing her father's hesitation, Lenya asks if he's only against the marriage because he hates the prince but feels obligated to her. From behind his imposing desk, the Duke booms that her plan is absolutely unacceptable. She passionately argues that marrying the prince will greatly benefit their family and prove their loyalty to the Emperor. Her father simply raises his hand, dismissing her logic by stating that he doesn't care. Sighing with relief, Lenya thanks him, surprised he gave permission so easily despite his clear unhappiness. The following day, a letter with the family seal is sent to the imperial castle, formalizing the arrangement. Standing beside her father, Lenya steels herself for the task ahead, marrying the prince and reforming him. A grim thought crosses her mind. For a mere side character like her, this world is a cruel and merciless place. She sighs in disappointment, accepting she'll likely never be a powerful spirit knight like her father. The story reveals that her mother, Lilia, from the Elta sacred land, transformed her life force into holy power upon her death. A beautiful portrait shows her red-haired mother, Lilia, lying in repose among a bed of flowers. Because the Duke failed to nurture her abilities, her inherited holy power remained dormant. Lenya realizes that, unlike the original story's version of herself, she has the potential to walk the path of a priestess. A map illustrates that only citizens of the Empire possess spirits, meaning she would lose hers if she moved to her mother's homeland of Elta. While praying at her desk, a brilliant golden light begins to emanate from her clasped hands. She stares at the divine glow in awe, impressed by its strength, but wondering if this is a normal level of power for a priestess. As she examines the light, she notes that she is the only one who can sense her own holy power. Her brother bursts into the room, shouting her name, and she looks up in surprise to ask what's wrong. Identified as Nicholas von Mont, he looks distraught as he tells her he heard the news from their father. Leaning over her desk, he seeks confirmation of the marriage proposal, and Lenya quietly affirms that it's true. Nicholas protests vehemently, arguing that at 20 years old, she's still a child and far too young for marriage. Lenya smiles gently, telling her brother he's the only one who still sees her as a child, and explaining she's already behind schedule by noble standards. She rationalizes her decision, stating that leaving the house would be better for their father and everyone else, leaving Nicholas speechless. Nicholas looks at her with a serious expression, preparing to remind her of a difficult truth. He gently explains their mother's passing was fated due to a long-term illness, not because of the ritual to save Lenya's life. He begs her not to marry out of guilt, but Lenya replies with a sad smile, knowing their father doesn't see it that way. Recalling a portrait of her parents, she thinks that her mother was her father's entire world, and he blames Lenya for taking her away. With a bittersweet smile, she concludes that seeing her face is a painful reminder for him, which is why she must leave. Taking her hands, Nicholas insists that she doesn't have to enter a marriage she dislikes just to appease their father. His eyes well up with tears as he pleads with his sister. Lenya smiles warmly, touched to feel the warmth of family affection after such a long time. In a sudden shift, she excitedly asks Nicholas if he wants to see the spirit she summoned just 2 days ago. Surrounded by beautiful roses, she happily declares that she loves her spirit because it's so adorable. Her confident mood vanishes as she suddenly looks confused, realizing she can't remember how to summon her spirit. An informational panel illustrates how spirits from the spirit realm manifest in the human world by connecting to a human soul. As Lenya struggles to focus, Nicholas reassures her not to push herself, reminding her it's only been a few days since she first succeeded. Suddenly, her face lights up with joyous surprise as she gasps, "I did it!" It came to me. A small, fluffy yellow chick stands with its wings out, looking decidedly grumpy. A pink-haired woman sadly apologizes to the grumpy chick, explaining that her father's spirit almost ate it. A smiling, silver-haired young man asks if the little spirit belongs to Lenya. The chick, P, suddenly erupts in a golden glow, shocking the man as the woman cries out in concern. The man sighs in relief as the cute chick flutters by, admitting the little creature scared him for a moment. A closer look at the spirit shows its small beak and yellow feathers, confirming its chick-like appearance. The pink-haired woman touches her chin thoughtfully, recalling the original story and questioning if Lenya's spirit was meant to be a chick. She has a sudden realization. The story never said it was a chick, only that it resembled one. Peering at this spirit, she wonders if it's less like a chick and more like a yellow sparrow. The silver-haired man suggests letting a bird expert take a look and offers to arrange for a scholar. The pink-haired woman considers the possibility that P isn't a chick and worries she might have neglected its growth. Cradling P gently in her hands amidst a field of flowers, she feels glad to understand its true nature and vows to care for it for Lenya's sake. Her relief turns to dread as she realizes this could be a bad thing, remembering the Duke disliked Lenya because of her spirit's perceived weakness. She panics, fearing that if the Duke discovers P has actual value, he might exploit her or even change her political marriage partner. With a gasp and clenched fists, she resolves that she must do something about this immediately. A wave of power radiates from her hands as her determination to act solidifies. The scene rushes toward a grand, ornate door, implying urgent movement. She calls out, "Brother!" as the silver-haired man turns to leave the room. She quickly tells him there's no need to call the scholar after all, and he asks about her sudden change of heart. She nervously explains that she's still not adept at summoning spirits, and is worried that if P is just a common bird, it would only inconvenience everyone. She adds that their father would be even more disappointed, which makes her brother pause thoughtfully. Her brother looks at her with concern, but agrees to her request, since she feels so strongly about it. She puts on a cheerful smile and waves goodbye as he departs. The moment he is gone, her smile vanishes, replaced by a cold, determined expression. The scene shifts to Matthias's office as a brilliant green spirit bird streaks across a clear blue sky. Inside, a man with light hair named Matthias is engulfed in swirling energy as the spirit approaches his desk. The magnificent green bird, identified as Spring Emerald, the Emperor's spirit, arrives clutching a sealed letter. Matthias sighs in annoyance as his powerful blue wolf spirit growls beside him, complaining that his majesty is always so dramatic. An older aide laments that he can't stand having the windows broken time and again as the spirit bird perches on the shattered frame. The emerald spirit glides gracefully through the broken window, leaving a trail of shimmering green light. A flashback shows a couple holding hands before a stained glass window, revealing the emperor agreed to their union, but with one condition. Reading the letter, Matthias is stunned by the condition. He must purify the soulstone mines. A narration explains that soulstones are minerals imbued with life force, capable of strengthening spirit animals like eagles, leopards, and lions. These valuable mines, however, have recently been contaminated by unknown dark magic, a sinister hand rising from the corrupted land. Matthias looks grim, pondering the difficult situation presented in the letter. His aide approaches cautiously, addressing him as Your Excellency to offer his counsel. The aide argues that no priest in the empire can purify such a vast, contaminated area, concluding the proposal is a pretext to grant Matthias the mines while canceling the marriage. Matthias grimly states the emperor issues these impossible orders to torment him, and his aide advises he reject the conditions immediately. Staring into his teacup, Matthias knowingly tells his aide that he is already aware of the implications. He accepts the cup of tea, his expression firm and resolved despite the circumstances. A flashback shows his blue wolf spirit, bloodied and snarling ferociously in a snowy, dark forest. He stands solemnly on a snowy battlefield littered with bodies, haunted by the memory of innocent lives lost because of him. The aide insists that incident was not his sin to atone for, but Matthias asserts that spirits and their users are connected by their very souls. As his spirit rests calmly beside him, Matthias declares that the sins committed by his spirit are his own. He resolves that they must find a priest capable of purifying the mine, and the aide asks if they should inform Lady Lenya. Just then, the office doors burst open, revealing the pink-haired woman Lenya, standing dramatically in the doorway. Lenya furiously demands to know if her father has received a response about her marriage proposal. Before he can answer, she announces she already knows something arrived, having seen the Emperor's spirit crash through the window. Mateus looks at her with a distant expression, wondering how many years it's been since she came to him on her own. He confirms the response arrived, but she cuts him off, proving she already knows the condition is to purify the soul stone mines. Mateus recoils in shock, demanding to know how she could possibly know that. Lenya smiles knowingly, explaining she heard rumors that His Majesty was struggling with the issue. Framed by flowers, Lenya declares with fierce determination that she will resolve this issue herself. She turns to her father, affirming her resolve but stating that she will need his help. Lenya stands before her father's desk, formally presenting her case to the seated Mateus. Mateus looks away skeptically, questioning what the prince could possibly do to help the situation. Mateus reluctantly agrees to invite the prince, prompting a grateful Lenya to promise she will handle both the mines and the marriage. An owl spirit is dispatched with an invitation, flying away from the aide after delivering the letter to Mateus. Lenya waits nervously while her father sits in contemplative silence at his desk. Later that night, Mateus stands alone by a grand window, swirling a glass of wine. He reflects on Lenya's choice, wondering why she, of all people, would choose him. Remembering a red-haired woman named Lilia, Mateus realizes Lenya's gaze is identical, and her troublesome taste in men reminds him of a past he couldn't face. He resolves to stop the marriage to Adrian at all costs, revealing he's already taken action as the scene shifts to 1 week later. A grand castle is shown, nestled against a mountain range at sunset. Dressed in a beautiful gown, Lenya paces anxiously, complaining that her guest is late. She nervously clutches the lace on her dress, her expression filled with worry. Lenya panics, realizing Adrian is uncharacteristically late as he is known for his punctuality and good manners. She imagines her father, the Duke, composing an offensive letter, fearing he's intentionally sabotaging the meeting. Trembling with frustration, Lenya is startled as her maid calls out her name. The maid joyfully announces his arrival, causing Lenya to turn in wide-eyed disbelief. The hem of her gown flutters as she rushes towards the balcony. She watches from above as a man on a black-winged horse descends into the courtyard. Lenya drops her bouquet of pink roses, captivated by the sight of his arrival. Adrian, a silver-haired man in a red cape, stands majestically amidst a field of flowers. Lenya's eyes sparkle with awe, wondering if all her efforts have finally paid off. He waits by his steed as she approaches him on the sunlit terrace. Curtsying deeply, Lenya formally welcomes His Highness and thanks him for coming. The silver-haired man dismounts his winged horse, his gaze fixed on the young woman before him. Lenya introduces herself as Lenya von Mont, silently admiring the sound of his voice. Adrian observes his surroundings, noting dryly that the Duke must be busy to send a lady as his greeting party. Lenya cheerfully explains her father's absence, while inwardly acknowledging that the Duke's rudeness and intentional tardiness have already angered the prince. As the Duke watches from a window, Lenya prepares for a psychological battle, determined to win Adrian over. Her singular goal flashes in her mind, to secure a marriage with Ed. Now seated for tea, Lenya steels her resolve, knowing she can't be underestimated, as Adrian announces he has a question for her. Adrian bluntly asks why she chose him as a partner when her father, the Duke, clearly doesn't approve. Startled by his directness, Lenya pauses with her teacup raised. She calmly sets her cup down, stating there has been a misunderstanding, which piques his curiosity. Lenya maintains a confident and serene expression, ready to make her move. As both resolve to assert their positions, Lenya declares she must prove this is her own decision, prompting him to question her. Lenya firmly states that choosing him as her partner and inviting him here was entirely her own decision. Surrounded by a floral aura, she sits with unwavering confidence, her gaze locked on his. The two sit opposite one another at a small, elegant table, the air thick with unspoken intentions. Lenya inwardly schemes, knowing that explaining why she chose an illegitimate child over the crown prince is the perfect way to capture his attention. Leaning forward, Lenya tells Prince Adrian that she sees a shining future ahead of him. She confidently elaborates that he possesses the potential to achieve great things. Though she smiles, Lenya privately acknowledges his potential for atrocity, which she intends to stop, a fact Adrian seems to grasp as he smirks. Intrigued, Adrian leans in with a sly look and asks her to provide an example. Lenya's eyes gleam as she recalls a secret project Ed worked on in the original story. She reveals her knowledge by mentioning his plan to purchase land in the Breton region, leaving him utterly stunned. The scene shifts, showing Adrian riding his winged steed away into a barren, sun-scorched landscape. Prince Adrian recalls how his foresight and investment transformed a struggling area into a massively profitable tourist destination. Lenya tells Adrian that while others credit his success to luck, she knows better. With a confident smile, she declares that it was his skill, not fortune, that brought him his success. Impressed, Adrian admits she has exceeded his expectations, while she reveals she investigated him before their meeting. He leans closer, confessing he had wrongly assumed she was merely her father's obedient daughter. With a charming smile, Adrian admits his growing desire to know more about her, causing Lenya to blush. Lenya internally scoffs, recognizing Ed's manipulative charm but vowing not to be swayed by it. She boldly places her hand over his, promising to reveal everything about herself to him. She pledges that upon their marriage, she will devote herself entirely to His Highness. Adrian's expression hardens as he considers her intense declaration, silently questioning its implications. Standing over her, he demands to know what she possibly gains from committing herself to him so completely. She calmly explains that their goals align, proposing a mutually beneficial partnership through marriage. Standing elegantly among flowers, Lenya makes her intentions clear. A marriage with her is the ultimate advantage. Adrian falls silent, his mind racing as he processes her bold and calculated proposal. Just then, the Duke arrives, apologizing for his tardiness as Lenya inwardly groans at the terrible timing. Adrian smoothly assures the Duke that Lenya was excellent company, adding that they discovered they share the same thoughts, which prompts a sharp, questioning glare from the Duke. Caught off guard by his claim, Lenya looks at Adrian with wide-eyed shock. The Duke informs Adrian that the Emperor has set conditions for the marriage, which Adrian correctly intuits is the matter of purifying the minds. Adrian confidently accepts the task, telling the Duke to simply focus on preparing for the wedding. Lenya is ecstatic, realizing with wide-eyed excitement that this means Ed will be the one to handle the minds. An elegant hand is extended in a formal gesture. Her father, the Duke, offers his hand to guide her. As he takes her hand to lead her away, he promises to guide her. Lenya is led away by her father, who glances back at a silent, thoughtful Adrian. The Duke walks alone through a grand room, the crackling fireplace casting a warm glow. He pauses, lost in thought, as he examines a vase of white calla lilies. The Duke questions if Lenya is truly acting of her own free will, noting her lack of enthusiasm despite the prince proposing the marriage. He considers her potential usefulness, carefully arranging a flower in the vase. His thoughts take a dark turn as he resolves to discard her from his plans if she ever becomes a hindrance. Turning to face an ornate door, he quietly agrees to proceed. He flinches slightly, caught off guard by an unexpected thought or sight. Lenya walks gracefully, her elegant shoes tapping softly on the floor. In a simple nightgown, she clutches a book to her chest. Surrounded by a bounty of fresh flowers, Lenya stands with a gentle, confident expression. She holds the book, looking poised and ready to present her work. Lenya smiles sweetly as she hands the documents to a blushing, flustered Adrian, who clears his throat. He notes that she finished quickly, privately assuming her first attempt at preparing documents will be a complete mess. As he reviews the pages, his skepticism gives way to focused concentration. Stunned, he looks up and asks if she truly prepared the flawless documents by herself, to which she simply answers yes. Internally impressed by her flawless work, his attention is suddenly snagged by a very specific and unusual clause in the contract.
He reads the unbelievable condition. For 3 years, all physical intimacy, even kissing, is strictly forbidden.
Lenya confirms the clause with a pleasant smile, adding that exceptions can be made for public appearances. Adrian's suspicion grows, wondering if this marriage is merely a front for a hidden agenda. Anticipating his thoughts, Lenya calmly acknowledges that the issue of heirs is paramount in an arranged marriage. She explains her desire to know his heart, not just his body, as his thoughts darken and a teacup shatters in a chilling premonition. A painful memory surfaces of a woman collapsing and coughing up blood, begging his forgiveness as he cried out in confusion. The memory of his attendant's sinister smile returns as she reveals the Empress wants him dead. He remembers his younger self, bloodied and crying after his nanny, a woman he loved like a mother, blamed his tainted demonic blood for the attempts on his life. Adrian reflects on the irony that his demonic blood saved him from the poison, reminding himself to stay calm and trust no one. Lenya watches with quiet concern as Adrian stares at the contract, lost in his dark memories. He points to a clause in their marriage contract requiring mutual agreement for divorce. Adrian coolly suggests changing it to allow a unilateral declaration so he can discard her if necessary. Lenya considers his proposal with a thoughtful expression. As she hands the document back, Adrian agrees to revise it, while she privately thinks the change might also benefit her. With the terms amended, Lenya prepares to sign the contract first. Both Adrian and Lenya sign the marriage contract, and she expresses her hope for their future together. With a handshake over a bed of yellow roses, they finalize their marriage formalities. Sometime later, a maid helps Lenya prepare, brushing her long pink hair. Lenya lets out a heavy sigh as her maid continues to brush her hair. Her maid mentions that the servants were all gossiping about how handsome Prince Adrian is. Lenya blushes, admitting he is popular and an amazing person, but finds the situation regrettable. The maid wonders why, lamenting that someone as wonderful as Lenya shouldn't have to settle for a political marriage. Lenya thinks of her maid's name, Hannah, with a gentle expression. She reassures Hannah that Prince Ed is a kind and wonderful person, despite it being a political marriage. In a moment of panic, Lenya realizes she can't just tell her maid they plan to divorce anyway. She quickly adds that they might even nurture love, looking forward to it, which seems to move Hannah. Wiping away a tear, Hannah wishes her a happy married life with the prince. As Hannah presents her with a jewelry box, Lenya internally questions if Adrian is truly as kind as she claimed. Lenya ponders the truth of his character with a thoughtful, uncertain look. She brightly tells her maid that he immediately agreed to her request to ban excessive physical contact for 3 years, leaving Hannah speechless. Hannah asks why she would make such a request, and Lenya explains her goal is to reform his behavior, not rush into having children. Still in disbelief, Hannah asks if he really agreed, and Lenya confirms he did so without hesitation. Hannah wonders how a man could have no ulterior motives, but Lenya internally recalls that in the original story, she wasn't his type. As the maid places an earring on her, she insists he must be faking it, but Lenya's inner thoughts disagree based on the story. The maid grabs Lenya's hands with urgent intensity. Leaning in close, Hannah advises her to never surrender the upper hand, and Lenya agrees, though she only hopes not to be treated as a tool. Startled by a sudden thought, Lenya looks up and calls for her father. She walks alone through a vast, gilded hall. Arriving at a grand set of doors, she announces that her father called for her. Entering her father's office, she asks the aide, Ludwig, where his grace is. Ludwig informs her that her father is currently tending to the flowers in the western greenhouse. Lenya is shocked to hear her cold father is gardening, wondering if this detail was in the original story. Ludwig explains that for the past 20 years, his grace has been trying to cultivate a certain seed. The news of his 20-year project leaves Lenya stunned. Walking toward the greenhouse, she wonders what kind of seed could possibly take 2 decades to grow. She opens the greenhouse doors, peeking inside at the lush flowers. She enters the sunlit greenhouse, seeing a man from behind amongst the plants. A young man with blonde hair turns around in shock, demanding to know why she is there. A promotional image displays a black-haired swordsman standing with a small, red-eyed girl. Returning to the story, Lenya stares in shock at something within the vibrant foliage. The blonde-haired man holds up a glowing, egg-like object, asking why she summoned him and what she wants. Looking at the object, she asks if that's the seed her father has been nurturing for 20 years. The young man is flustered and speechless at her question. Annoyed, he asks if Ludwig told her about the seed before sighing and allowing her to take a look. As she holds the glowing seed, he explains that it is a species imported from the Holy Kingdom of Elta, which refuses to sprout. Lenya examines the seed, thinking that if it hasn't sprouted in 20 years, it must be dead. She lifts the strange glowing seed up towards the light. Suddenly she feels a pulse of movement from within the seed. As Lenya exclaims that it's alive, her father Matthias appears, confirming the plant can survive for 1,000 years until conditions are right. Matthias stands amidst the flowers, holding the precious seed and explaining that it won't sprout without the right trigger. Lenya contemplates the stubborn seed, wondering if it requires a special condition that only the Holy Kingdom can provide. Frustrated, Lenya tells her father to give up on the 20-year-old seed, stating she's not here for idle chatter. The tense conversation moves to a formal setting as Lenya and her father Matthias sit opposite each other at a small table. Leaning forward, Mateus confronts her, asking if she truly went to the prince's room in a negligee the previous night. Lenya is stunned into silence, shocked that this is what her father wanted to discuss. She explains it was merely loungewear, but Mateus angrily scolds her for her recklessness, while she internally justifies it, since Ed is her future husband. Sighing in frustration, Mateus rubs his forehead, admitting he wouldn't be so concerned if it were any other man. A tense silence hangs between them as they sit at the sunlit table. A realization dawns on Lenya as she looks at her father, suddenly wondering if he is genuinely worried about her. She challenges him, asking if he's actually just afraid Prince Ed will use her as a hostage against their family. Mateus confirms her suspicion, stating he must guard against any threat to their house, even her fiancé, as Lenya's eyes drift to the glowing seed. Pointing out his hypocrisy over the seed, Lenya rises and fiercely vows to protect their family from Ed herself, even if it costs her life. Her eyes burn with ferocious determination, her threat hanging in the air. Startled by her conviction, Mateus can only stare as Lenya dismisses the conversation and turns to leave. Walking away, Lenya feels foolish for hoping he could show love like a normal father. She briefly recalls the moment she felt closer to him while discussing the seed, a fleeting connection now lost. With a heavy heart, she continues on her way, her hopes for fatherly affection dashed. Stomping away in frustration, Lenya mutters that he might as well spend his life watering that useless seed if he can't just say he's worried. Gotcha. She opens the door to her room, her expression shifting to surprise at what she sees inside. She finds Adrian waiting for her among a sea of roses, calmly announcing he's been expecting her. Holding a bouquet, Adrian offers her a charming smile. Shocked by his presence, Lenya asks why His Highness is in her room. Adrian announces he must leave soon to handle a mining issue, much to Lenya's surprise. He explains that since their marriage is decided, he won't stay long, telling her to come to the palace in 2 weeks. Lenya reflects on the two men in her life, a father who values family honor over her, and a fiancé who ignores her completely. She clenches her teeth as a dark memory surfaces. Suddenly, the tragic ending of the original story flashes through her mind. The scene shifts to a towering clock tower at night, signaling the start of a grim vision. In her memory of the novel, a sinister-looking Adrian asks if Lenya has found the woman he's searching for. The original Lenya looks back with a tired and somber expression, her spirit seemingly broken. A memory reveals the hero, Tara von Schwert, and Lenya recalls that they were once friends. The vision continues as Adrian impatiently pressures her, accusing her of being swayed by useless emotions. He claims to trust her, but she knows he trusts no one, turning away with a defeated look before walking off. The original Lenya desperately calls out Ed's name, reaching for him. With tears in her eyes, she refuses to betray Tara's location before suddenly collapsing into his arms after being fatally stabbed. Adrian catches her, panicked and confused, as a small, empty vial of poison clatters to the floor. His eyes widen in horror as he realizes she has poisoned herself. Dying in his arms, the original Lenya pleads with him, insisting he is only playing a villain's role. She warns that killing Tara will make him a true villain, her final words leaving him stunned. With her last breath, she begs him to reconsider his path. The memory concludes with the sad truth. Ed was selfish to the end, and Lenya was used. Back in the present, Lenya faces Adrian with renewed resolve, determined to never repeat the original story's mistakes. She firmly takes his hand in hers. Looking him in the eyes, Lenya declares that she wants to accompany him. A sly smile plays on her lips as she thinks, "This time, I'll be the one to use you." Amidst a bloom of flowers, she repeats her desire to go with him. Adrian is taken aback by her unexpected request, looking at her in disbelief. Lenya coyly suggests that being together is the essence of marriage, inwardly eager to see his reaction to this assertive new behavior. To her shock, Adrian apologizes for being selfish and agrees to wait for her, his sly smirk suggesting he's intrigued by this change. Lenya realizes that asserting herself, unlike her passive counterpart in the novel, is the key to changing her fate. Leaning close, Adrian questions if her father would oppose her leaving with him. Adrian explains that rumors would spread if she stayed at the palace while still unmarried, causing Lenya to realize she'd completely forgotten about her father. Agreeing with him, Lenya internally confirms her father would oppose it to protect the family honor, while Adrian watches her with a sly smile. Adrian brings a finger to his lips, a knowing, mischievous glint in his eyes. With a spark of inspiration, he proposes that they run away together, leaving Lenya utterly shocked. In a romantic, flower-filled fantasy, Adrian gazes charmingly at a blushing Lenya. The scene shifts as a cloaked Adrian quickly departs through a large, moonlit doorway. Under his hood, Adrian reflects on the unexpected turn of events. He playfully asks if she's suggesting they elope, then cheekily rephrases it as a romantic escape. Blushing, Lenya repeats his alluring words, romantic escape? As Adrian worries he's gone too far, Lenya's thoughts solidify with conviction. She agrees to escape with him. Lenya excitedly grabs his hands and begins planning their escape for after 9 p.m., even offering to send her maid ahead, which stuns Adrian. She confidently assures him she will handle all the preparations. Setting a rendezvous, she tells him to meet her at 10 p.m. in the northern forest, leaving him speechless and sweating. Alone again. A cloaked Adrian sighs, admitting his suggestion was just a joke he never expected her to take seriously. Recalling her determined expression, he realizes he couldn't bring himself to crush her spirit by telling her to stay. Adrian rationalizes that as long as they avoid trouble before the wedding, the Duke's disapproval won't matter. Suddenly, a sinister shadow slithers into the room, startling Adrian. A red-haired woman, identified as Ed's confidant and dark sorcerer Isis, materializes with a giant black snake. Adrian accuses Isis of spying on him again, as her snake asks if he intends to bring that woman here, frustrating him with her meddling. Now wearing a mask, Adrian declares that Lenya will be his wife, and he will bring her back. He commands Isis to prepare a grand welcome, but her snake familiar warns him that humans are not to be trusted. The snake then viciously offers to curse Lenya and kill her immediately, shocking Adrian. Isis and her serpentine familiar stare forward with menacing, glowing red eyes. A dark power radiates from Adrian as he reacts to the threat against his fiancée. Filled with rage, he strikes out, furiously telling the insolent sorcerer to know her place. A dagger pins the bleeding snake to the floor, as Adrian warns Isis that he's letting her insolence slide only because of her abilities. Tisk. Isis clutches her face, a pained and reptilian eye glaring with resentment. Seething in her study, Isis slams her hand on the desk, enraged that Lenya is getting in her way. Back in Lenya's room, Hannah confirms that the escape preparations are complete. Hannah nervously asks if this is truly all right, worried about how furious the Duke will be. Lenya confidently reassures Hannah that she left her father a letter, knowing his public position prevents him from acting recklessly. After Lenya urges her to go, Hannah agrees to leave first and wait for her. Lenya watches from the window as Hannah crosses the snowy grounds below. It's revealed that Hannah has an ostrich as a familiar, allowing her to ride the swift creature to the prince's palace. As Hannah speeds away, Lenya worries that while her maid's departure is inconspicuous, her own will surely raise alarms if she's caught. She turns to a wardrobe, planning to use a secret escape route designed for a castle siege. Pushing aside the clothes, Lenya reveals a hidden door in the back of the wardrobe. Convinced no one knows of the secret passage, she slips discreetly into the darkness. Inside a narrow, cramped tunnel, Lenya resolves to push through the difficult passage to secure her escape. With determined effort, she tells herself she is almost at the end. She arrives at a solid wooden door, the exit of the secret tunnel. She pushes the heavy door open, emerging from the darkness. Stepping out of the hidden exit, Lenya finds herself in the cold night air. In a snowy, moonlit clearing, she sees Adrian waiting for her with a magnificent black Pegasus. Adrian smiles warmly, telling her he's been waiting and inviting her to come with him. As she approaches, Lenya stumbles forward with a surprised yelp. Held securely in his arms, a blushing Lenya feels her heart begin to race. The Pegasus soars into the night sky, flying past the full moon as Lenya wonders at the powerful feeling taking over her heart. Under a full moon, a panicked voice screams for their father from within the grand castle. A young man with gray hair bursts into a hallway, holding a letter and shouting that something terrible has happened. He storms into his father's bedroom, where the older man, Matthias, asks why he is there so late. The son, Nicholas, urgently presents the letter. Reading the letter, Matthias's expression darkens with shock and anger. Matthias can't believe Prince Adrian took Lenya, but Nicholas confirms her room is empty and her handwriting suggests she left willingly. Matthias realizes her vague note telling him not to worry was a deliberate deception. Nicholas insists they can still catch her if they hurry, but his father just sits on the bed, sighing with exhaustion. Mateus coldly orders his son to leave her be, declaring it was her choice, leaving Nicholas stunned and confused. Nicholas confronts his father, questioning his indifference to Lenya leaving home, but Mateus remains silent. Nicholas is appalled by his father's cruel reaction as Mateus's hand clenches into a tight fist. Frustrated, Nicholas defiantly declares that he will go find her himself. Mateus sternly repeats his command for Nicholas to stay put and leave Lenya alone. Mateus claims his decision is for the best, causing Nicholas to wonder if his father cares at all, and to sympathize with Lenya's struggles. Nicholas acknowledges his father's words, but looks determined to argue his point. Nicholas vows that when he is head of the family, he will protect Lenya and give her the affection she deserves, to which his father flatly replies, "Do whatever you want." Nicholas turns and walks out of the room, leaving his father alone with his thoughts. The moment he's alone, Mateus rushes to the window, his composure breaking as he whispers Lenya's name in distress. Consumed by regret, he blames himself, believing he should have been the one to protect her. Mateus looks out the window with a pained and remorseful expression. This scene flashes back a few hours earlier, where Lenya finds her brother Nicholas asleep at his desk. She looks at him with sympathy, thinking how exhausted he must be from taking on family duties and his studies. Realizing she can't give him the letter for their father, she decides to leave a note instead as she sets it on his desk. Suddenly her eyes widen in surprise as she notices a stack of drawings on his desk. She's shocked to find her own childhood drawings, beautifully redrawn, and wonders if her brother did this. Amazed by his skill, she laments that such a talent is wasted as a mere hobby, though she knows his duties leave him no time for it. Nicholas stirs in his sleep, murmuring Lenya's name, which startles her. A promotional image features a girl with long, fiery red hair and an intense gaze. Lenya recalls their mother's words, asking her to take care of her brother. A tear silently streams down Nicholas's face as he sleeps. He sleep talks an apology, and Lenya, heartbroken, thinks he has nothing to be sorry for. With a sad expression, she gently leaves the note beside him. Nicholas continues to sleep, unaware of her presence. She places the letter for their father on the desk, bidding her sleeping brother a silent farewell. Back in the present, a distraught Nicholas touches a small cut on his lip, tormented by what has happened. He agonizes over whether Lenya might have stayed if only he had been awake to talk to her. Looking out the window into the night, he whispers her name with deep regret. He continues to stare out at the moon, lost in sorrowful thought. On their journey, Adrian looks unwell as he rides his Pegasus through a forest. Blay! Having dismounted, Lenya throws up in the woods, while Adrian sighs, clearly annoyed by the delay. Adrian internally complains that she's more trouble than he anticipated, as her motion sickness has ruined his plan to reach the Imperial Castle overnight. Looking pale and weak, Lenya insists she's fine, while Adrian asks if she's alright. Adrian apologizes, blaming his Pegasus, Kuro, who seems to snort in protest. He offers to find a village for medicine, but Lenya declines, saying she just needs to rest for a bit. Agreeing to her request, Adrian announces they will take a short break. Lenya looks at him gratefully, saying he's very kind and that she's glad to be engaged to him. They share a sweet, romantic gaze, surrounded by a flourish of flowers. Adrian's kind demeanor vanishes as he internally scoffs at her, calling her a naive fool for believing his act. He recalls a traumatic memory of a person lying dead, thinking that Lenya has no idea how cruel the world can be. Resolving to warn her, he explains he cares for her as his fiancé, but that she must remember something important. Adrian cautions her to be suspicious of anyone acting overly kind, as smiles can hide ill intentions. Lenya simply thanks him for his concern. With a confident smile, Lenya tells him she's not naive and only calls truly kind people kind, like him. Huh? Adrian is stunned, internally questioning how she could possibly think he is truly kind. He asks if she's settled down, and she turns with a bright smile, assuring him she's fine now. Standing by his Pegasus, Adrian gestures toward her, announcing it's time to head out. As he takes her hand, Adrian feels a pang of guilt he thought was long dead, stirred by her sincere gaze. His expression hardens with grim resolve. The scene transitions to a grand castle, with black flags against a warm, sunset-hued sky. Their Pegasus lands gracefully in a palace courtyard as Adrian thinks they've arrived just before sunset. Now hooded, Adrian stands with Lenya, taking in the view of their new surroundings at dusk. A man with dark hair, identified as Ed's butler Killian, welcomes the prince back, relieved to see him return safely before a crowd of servants. Adrian proudly introduces Lenya to Killian as his fiancée, much to her surprise. Killian formally greets her as His Highness's aide, and Lenya notes he perfectly matches his description from the novel. Recalling Killian's importance in the original story, Lenya decides to get on his good side and politely returns his greeting. Badump. Knowing his weakness from the novel, she compliments his tie, causing a flustered Killian to blush. Realizing he's a necktie maniac, her praise proves super effective, and an overjoyed Killian swears his utmost devotion to her. Killian fawns over Lenya, while a stone-faced Adrian looks on, clearly unimpressed with his aide's behavior. Adrian curtly cuts the introduction short, ordering Killian to prepare for the banquet. Lenya questions the sudden banquet, but Adrian explains it's a natural welcome for her first visit. She puzzles over how they could have prepared, since they only decided to return yesterday. Realizing Adrian couldn't have sent a message, she wonders how Killian could have known she was coming. She suspects he either has communication magic, or, more chillingly, that Isis is already working with him. Adrian calmly explains he received a letter from Killian yesterday morning while they were still at her family's castle. He clarifies that he simply replied to Killian's inquiry about his return date. Lenya processes this, calming herself by reasoning that she didn't see anyone resembling Isis among the servants. Now that she's feeling better, Adrian offers to show her around the palace, and she readily accepts. He leads her to a lavishly decorated room, announcing that it's hers. Overwhelmed by the opulence, Lenya can only say, "Wow." She admires the details, noting the fine lace curtains and a beautiful garden outside, both unusual for the cold north. Gazing out the window, she whispers how pretty the garden is. Huh? Her eyes widen in shock as she spots a figure with long red hair walking in the garden below. She internally screams the name Isis as she recognizes the red-haired woman, reeling from the sight. Adrian asks what's wrong, but she quickly blames lingering motion sickness to hide her panic. Looking back outside, she sees no one there and tries to convince herself she imagined it. Adrian expresses concern, offering to cancel the banquet, but Lenya insists she'll be fine. She confidently states her desire to fulfill her duties as crown princess as soon as possible. He gently takes her hand, assuring her she doesn't need to push herself just to be considerate of him. Lenya's eyes widen in stark realization as her mind screams a single word: lies. She sees through his facade, convinced his kindness is an act and that he would discard her once she's no longer useful. Pushing through her turbulent thoughts, she steps away, insisting she'll feel better after a short rest. Adrian looks on, slightly surprised by her abrupt shift in demeanor. Agreeing to let her rest before the banquet, he turns to leave as she quietly accepts. Once alone, Lenya looks down, a subtle, calculating smirk on her face. In a luxurious bath, Adrian holds a drink and thinks about Lenya. He puzzles over the wary expression she made earlier, unable to forget her look of alarm. He muses that while his gentle smile has always charmed noblewomen, Lenya is the first to meet him with such wariness. A flashback shows his typically charming and disarming smile.
Sighing, he runs a hand through his hair, feeling as though she sees right through his act.
He thought she was just a sheltered girl, but now he feels her eyes can pierce through to his true nature. He takes a drink, concluding that Lenya is indeed a peculiar woman. Later that night, Lenya rests in her grand bed. As Lenya sleeps peacefully, a dark presence begins to seep in through her open balcony doors. A sinister, snake-like shadow slithers across the floor of her lavish bedroom. Hiss! A giant serpent flicks its forked tongue, ready to strike. In the darkness of the room, a massive cobra with glowing yellow eyes rises, hissing menacingly. The cobra's shadow looms over the bed, casting a pall over the unsuspecting Lenya. Ugh! Lenya stirs from her sleep, her eyes flying open in a terrified gasp as she senses the danger. Hiss! She sits up in bed, coming face to face with the giant, threatening cobra. Trembling in fear, she cries out, pleading for the monstrous creature to stay away. Suddenly, a brilliant, fiery bird materializes in a flash of light, and Lenya stares in confusion, wondering if it's a red bird. The serpent hisses, startled by the sudden appearance of the glowing creature. The magnificent phoenix hovers above Lenya's bed, shielding her from the dark serpent. As the phoenix swoops down, Lenya watches from her bed, caught between fear and awe. Wow, she marvels at the creature's beauty, noting its ruby-like beak, ancient eyes, and mesmerizing flames. She stares in disbelief, wondering if this could possibly be the legendary phoenix. The fiery bird descends gracefully, drawing closer to a stunned Lenya. The majestic phoenix leans in and lets out an unexpectedly tiny chirp. Pai. Lenya's face contorts in shock at the anticlimactic sound. In a flash of light, the grand phoenix transforms into an adorable little yellow chick, chirping pee. Now fully awake, Lenya finds the chick nestled on her covers and asks, "P, did you wake me up?" wondering if she summoned it. Cradling the chick, she thanks it for waking her from a weird nightmare. But then she notices something feels different about its feathers. She discovers a single red feather on the chick, whom she calls Pai-chan, and wonders if it's growing, recalling how she'd neglected P before. With tears in her eyes, she laments that she never expected P to grow and vows to take proper care of it with plenty of soul stones. She cuddles the small bird, tenderly promising that she will never abandon it. Knock knock. A maid's voice announces from the other side of the door that they've brought Lady Lenya's dress for the banquet. Holding her little bird, Lenya tells them to come in, wondering if Ed had a dress prepared, since her own maid Hannah hadn't arrived yet. Two maids enter carrying a garment bag, revealing a shocking choice, a red velvet dress. Lenya's expression hardens as she questions if Adrian really chose the dress. The maid confirms his specific instructions, but Lenya knows it's a lie. She remembers that the red velvet dress is a symbol of the Empress, and wearing it would surely trigger Adrian's deep-seated trauma. Recalling Adrian's warning to never wear that outfit, she realizes the maids brought it on purpose and firmly demands a different dress. A maid coolly informs her there's no time until the banquet and no other dresses are available. The maids insist she must wear the red dress, leaving Lenya feeling trapped and sensing that something is very wrong. The sound of rushing footsteps echoes through the palace halls. A young woman with brown hair, Hannah, bursts into the palace with a large purple bird, apologizing profusely for her late arrival. "Hannah," Lenya cries out in relief as her maid arrives, startling the two other maids. Hannah rushes to her lady's side, explaining that Adrian's spirit mount was incredibly fast. Lenya asks Hannah who the other maids are, whispering that they've been glaring at her. Hannah explains that the maids were being ridiculous, insisting Lenya wear the dress they brought even though she told them she didn't want to. Relieved, Lenya agrees she doesn't need the other maids now that Hannah is here, and Hannah confidently asks if she should throw them out. With her fierce purple bird looming behind her, Hannah glares at the maids and orders them to leave at once, causing them to scream in fright. "Good grief," Hannah sighs, with her hands on her hips, while Lenya gives a thumbs up, thinking how dependable they both are. Now that the nuisances are gone, Hannah cheerfully tells Lenya it's time to get ready, and Lenya eagerly agrees. Elsewhere, the red-haired Isis smirks while watching a servant, wondering if Lenya enjoyed her little welcome greeting. She reveals she cursed Lenya's room to induce nightmares, disappointed she couldn't witness her terrified expression firsthand. However, Isis looks forward to the next part of her plan, seeing Lenya appear in the traumatic red dress. As Killian stands by, Isis muses that she'll be satisfied seeing the anguish on Adrian's face, but Adrian's voice cuts through her thoughts, calling her name. Adrian eyes her suspiciously, noting her grin and asking if something good has happened. Isis feigns surprise and claims she's just excited to meet Lenya, prompting a cynical scoff from Adrian. As Adrian recalls her pledge of loyalty, Isis internally smirks, remembering his sleep-talking and vowing to serve his wishes no matter what. Adrian coldly dismisses her claims as nonsense, pointing out that she made no effort to greet Lenya upon her arrival. An attendant announces Lady Lenya's arrival at the banquet, and she appears in a beautiful pink gown, thinking of the man she must now trust. Descending the grand staircase, Lenya makes her elegant entrance to the banquet. The sight of her pink gown sends a shockwave through the onlookers, and Isis seethes with rage, realizing her plan has failed. Adrian immediately rises from his seat at the head of the table. He meets Lenya at the bottom of the stairs, taking her hand and warmly telling her that he's been waiting. Correcting himself to say, "We've been waiting," he gently leads her toward the main table. With a polite flourish, Adrian seats her at the place of honor beside him, and she thanks him. Lenya subtly glances around, taking in the scene and assessing the situation. She understands his grand gesture is a silent warning to the servants, who now murmur about her beauty and the prince's devotion. A maid nervously approaches the red-haired Isis, who is turning to leave the hall. The two maids from before ask what happened to the red dress, and an enraged Isis explains that Lenya and her maid kicked her out. Concluding she underestimated Lenya, Isis resolves to deal with her quickly before she has a change of heart. From the head table, Adrian's voice rings out, calling Isis's name and startling the group. Questioned by Adrian about her absence, Isis smoothly lies that she was simply captivated by Lady Lenya's beauty. Stepping forward, Isis formally introduces herself as the prince's physician. Boom! As Isis's intense gaze meets hers, Lenya recoils in visible shock and terror. Isis internally questions Lenya's extreme reaction, while Lenya, breathless, confirms her suspicions and introduces herself. Adrian places a protective hand on Lenya's, proudly introducing her to Isis as his fiancée. Shoot! Isis inwardly curses, recognizing Adrian's expression as that of a man who will tolerate no interference. Isis believes Adrian is only protecting Lenya for her usefulness, convinced he is incapable of falling in love with anyone else. Glaring at the couple, Isis concludes that if she doesn't get rid of Lenya soon, controlling Ed will become impossible. The grand banquet proceeds with guests seated along the long, opulent dining table. Lenya nervously grips her glass, unsettled by how close Isis already is to Ed, while Isis sips her wine with predatory calm. She recalls from the novel that Isis is the most dangerous villain, a sorcerer who sold her soul to a demon tribe. A flashback reveals Isis made a pact with the demon prince 600 years ago, gaining immense power and eternal youth. Her ultimate goal was to approach and control Ed, using him to surrender the entire world to the demons. Lenya takes a sip of wine, reasoning that Ed only sees Isis as a useful tool, unaware of her true nature, which is revealed late in the story. Adrian tells Lenya she should get to know some key people now that she's living in the palace. A woman with brown hair and a bun introduces herself as Amelie, the head maid, and Lenya greets her politely. Lenya wonders if Amelie sent the maids with the red dress, suspecting it was either her, Isis, or a mysterious guru. A blonde-haired man approaches the table, announcing that he will be next to greet her. The man kneels and gently kisses her hand in a formal greeting. Later, in a private corridor, Isis apologizes to Lenya, now in a blue gown, for any offense she may have caused. Isis feigns concern for a fragile woman like Lenya, but Lenya curtly replies that it's none of her business and she isn't fragile. Leaning closer, Isis asserts that she knows His Highness far better than Lenya does, HMPH. Isis scoffs with disdain, and Lenya reluctantly agrees to keep her words in mind. With a slight bow, Isis announces her departure and turns to leave. Lenya watches her go, thinking grimly that Isis is severely underestimating her. Determined to uncover the truth, Lenya strengthens her resolve just as someone asks for permission to enter her chambers. Lenya finds Adrian relaxing with a cup of tea, and he greets her warmly. He asks if she encountered Isis, having overheard their conversation, and Lenya confirms they spoke in the hall. Cleverly twisting the truth, Lenya claims Isis is a kind man who warned her against blindly trusting the prince's kindness, leaving Adrian stunned. Feigning sadness, she suggests Isis sees her as an unworthy woman and was only expressing his concern for Adrian. Lenya quickly changes the subject, stating she's been investigating the pollution at the Westall mine. She reveals that someone seems to have illegally summoned a high-level demon tribe, and Adrian's expression darkens with rage. Lenya puts a hand to her mouth, acting shocked by the revelation of high-level demons. Though she feigns surprise, Lenya already knows who summoned the demons, recalling a vision of Adrian standing before a sky crackling with dark energy. The terrible truth flashes through her mind. The one responsible for the pollution was Ed himself. The title of the story appears against a dark, starry background. A beautiful, ornate artifact is revealed, the Twilight Key. Using the key, Ed opened a portal to the demon world, unleashing them into the mine as a dark omen of the Empire's impending fall. Adrian calmly dismisses the mine purification issue, telling Duke Mont to focus solely on the wedding. Lenya reflects on the situation, thinking that Adrian is only in trouble because he's the one who started it all. Adrian announces his intention to personally defeat the demons, surprising Lenya, who assumed he'd sent his soldiers. With a serious expression, Adrian explains his reason. Their marriage is at stake. Silently fuming at his act, Lenya clutches her necklace and vows not to let him get away with his deception. Lenya puts on a smile and thanks him for his kindness, as both continue their charade, each believing they are fooling the other. While Adrian prepares his massive army for the attack, Lenya watches from above, marveling at the scale of the operation. Lenya presses her hand against a window, her expression filled with quiet concern as she looks outside. Killian, the brown-haired attendant, arrives at Lenya's door, presenting her with the long, cloth-wrapped item she requested. She accepts the heavy, wrapped object from Killian, thanking him for delivering it. Unwrapping a magnificent spear, Lenya realizes it's Adrian's favorite weapon, perfect for his aerial combat style on a Pegasus. A flashback shows Adrian's mastery with the spear in battle as Lenya grips the weapon, a new resolve in her eyes. Lenya boldly declares that the spear will never break, and Killian recoils in shock, realizing she just performed a blessing. Killian expresses his amazement, stating he never knew Lady Lenya possessed holy power, an ability reserved for elite priests. With a sheepish, chibi smile, Lenya admits it's her first time trying, which sends a horrified Killian into a silent panic. Recalling what she read in a book, Lenya holds the spear aloft and begins to channel her power into it. Surrounded by a brilliant aura of holy energy, Lenya concentrates fiercely, willing the enchantment to succeed. The spear erupts in a blinding golden light, and as Lenya smiles triumphantly, a stunned Killian gasps in awe. "It worked," Lenya exclaims, certain the spear is now more powerful, while Killian can only whisper, "Amazing." Killian privately admits he didn't believe she could do it, while Lenya glares, knowing he had doubted her all along. Overjoyed, Killian dashes off to inform the prince, ignoring Lenya's attempts to stop him and tell him Adrian is busy. Killian's extreme reaction makes Lenya realize that her ability might be a much bigger deal than she initially thought. A faint memory of a red-haired woman holding her as a baby surfaces, reaffirming the incredible power of a blessing. Feeling empowered, Lenya decides to make a healing potion next, determined to prove she's more capable than Isis. Following the same method, Lenya sits at her table and begins to infuse holy power into a bottle of water. She closes her eyes in deep concentration, her hands enveloping the potion bottle as it begins to radiate with sacred light. Suddenly, an armored Adrian bursts into the room calling her name, with Killian trailing excitedly behind him. Lenya explains that her holy power worked, privately noting that his regal white cape makes him look less like a villain. Adrian's face lights up with genuine joy as he praises her success, a reaction that catches Lenya by surprise. Beaming, Lenya then presents him with a tray, announcing that she also created a healing potion. Both Adrian and Killian stare in stunned silence at the single potion bottle she's offering. The view pans to a table covered in numerous identical potions, as a thought bubble questions if she made all of them. Misreading their shock, Lenya nervously asks if one bottle isn't enough to fight a demon. Adrian asks her if she's aware of how many potions a single priest can typically create in one day. He picks up a potion, telling her she clearly doesn't understand her own tremendous, unheard-of capability. A magical glow surrounds them as Adrian holds the potion, the weight of his words settling between them. The full implication of her power finally hits Lenya, and she lets out a gasp of utter shock. Adrian asks if she has ever received formal training, and Lenya quietly admits that she is entirely self-taught. Turning to his aide, Adrian orders Killian to find an experienced priest to properly educate and guide Lenya. Lenya asks if he means a tutor, and Killian enthusiastically confirms that her potential is too great to ignore. Adrian leans in close, vowing to polish her like a jewel, declaring her a hidden gem he refuses to leave in the dust. Blushing from his intense words, Lenya's practical mind immediately begins to worry about how much a priest will cost. While she knows Adrian can afford it, she's wary of becoming too indebted to him. Thinking ahead, she realizes any large debts could complicate things after their eventual divorce. Adrian astutely senses her hesitation, leaning in to ask if she's worried about the money. Flustered, Lenya quickly denies it, prompting Adrian to act offended and ask if she thinks so little of his wealth. He proudly states that his personal investments give him more than enough funds, separate from his royal allowance. With a dazzling smile, Adrian encourages her not to be shy, but Lenya groans, overwhelmed by his generosity. He declares that investing in her is an investment in himself, as she is his fiancée, making her blush deeply. Despite herself, Lenya's heart flutters as she agrees, thinking it's unfair of him to say such kind things with such a handsome face. A few days later, Adrian soars through the clouds on a magnificent, dark-winged Pegasus. Below, his army of knights marches in formation, their red banners flying high as they advance through the forest. Lost in thought, Adrian rides on with a pensive and serious expression. He reflects on his recent actions, having removed the threatening Isis and increased the number of guards to protect Lenya. A look of concern crosses his face as he admits to himself that he doesn't feel safe leaving Lenya alone in the palace. A knight rides up beside him, calling out, "Your Highness," and breaking him from his reverie. The blonde-haired knight smiles, suggesting they stop for a meal. Adrian agrees, telling his men they will take a break once they are over the next hill. As his men rest, Adrian sits alone and examines a small wooden box, wondering about its contents. He carefully opens the lid. A flashback shows Lenya approaching him in the palace hall just before his departure. She gives him the box, telling him to open it if he gets hungry, and assuring him that, while simple, she thinks he will like the food inside. Back in the present, Adrian looks down at the box with a soft, slightly wistful expression. Inside, he finds 3 donuts covered in what appears to be shredded coconut. He assumes the pastry is a failure, believing an inexperienced girl like her couldn't possibly bake well. Deciding it would be wasteful to throw it away, he hesitantly takes a bite. His eyes fly open in an instant of pure shock. An explosion of flavor hits him as he realizes the donut is perfectly sweet and oily, with a delightful coconut taste. The blonde knight asks what's wrong, curiously calling the donut a round loaf, as other soldiers look on. Another soldier hopefully asks if Lady Lenya sent the treats for everyone. Adrian quickly shuts him down, possessively declaring that she made them just for him. Dismissing his men to eat their own food, Adrian blushes happily as he savors another bite of the donuts. A cute flashback shows a maid informing a determined Lenya that Prince Ed loves coconuts. Lenya smiles, confident that food is the surest way to a man's heart, imagining herself taming a grumpy cat version of Ed with a donut. A knock sounds at her door, and she invites Killian to enter. As the dark-haired attendant enters, Lenya tells him she needs to ask him some questions. She thinks to herself that with Ed gone, it's the perfect time to sort some things out. Lenya declares her trust in Killian, calling him the most reliable person she knows in the family. With grim determination, she places her hand against a wooden door, bringing up the 2 maids who approached her on her first day. Killian reacts in shock as Lenya explains that the maids insisted she wear a scandalous red dress to dinner. She recounts knowing about Prince Ed's poor relationship with the Empress and his subsequent hatred for red dresses. Demanding to know the maid's intentions, Lenya asks Killian for information, prompting him to promise he'll find out immediately. Lenya stops him, stating her suspicion that the maids didn't act alone, which surprises Killian. Looking troubled, Killian concedes she's right, agreeing that a maid couldn't have orchestrated such a plot. He bows and promises to begin an investigation, and Lenya replies that she's counting on him. As he leaves, Lenya confidently thinks that with Killian on the case, the truth will be revealed quickly. Clutching the red dress, she glares ahead, wondering which of her enemies, Amelie or Isis, is the true culprit behind the plot. The scene transitions to a tranquil view of the castle under the light of a full moon. Inside her chambers, Lenya kneels by the window, practicing her holy powers as a divine aura glows around her. She vows to keep training her powers so she'll be prepared for a confrontation once the culprit is identified. A knock interrupts her, and Killian announces his presence at her door. Killian apologizes for the late hour, but Lenya assures him it's fine, as she was awake practicing her powers anyway. He explains the matter is urgent and delivers his report. The person who ordered the red dress was Isis. Lenya's expression hardens with fury as her suspicions are confirmed. She knew it. The confirmation hangs in the air. Isis was the one behind the red dress incident. A grim satisfaction settles on Lenya's face as she thinks, "As I thought." Killian explains that while he initially suspected the head maid, Amelie, his investigation revealed she only suggested a new dress. It was Isis who specifically chose the red design. Lenya grimly realizes that Isis's influence within the palace is far greater than she had ever imagined. Lenya suspects with grim certainty that spies have infiltrated every corner of the castle. She tells a black-haired aide that while she doesn't know why a woman named Isis is her enemy, she's sure the harassment will continue. The aide looks horrified as Lenya warns that their next attempt might be to tamper with her food. He vows to prevent such a horrifying thing from happening, and she calmly replies that she trusts him. Lenya insists they need a more fundamental solution, leaving her aide looking confused and concerned. She declares that they must expose all of Isis's servants before she returns, shocking her aide. Her aide, identified as Killian, wonders how they'll find them, pointing out that only the most obvious culprits have been caught. Surrounded by flowers, Lenya smiles confidently, announcing that she has a good idea. Having gathered all the servants in the Grand Hall, Lenya and Killian stand ready to identify those working for ISIS. Lenya announces a surprise hygiene inspection, ordering everyone to step forward one by one and show their hands. The servants murmur in confusion, caught off guard by the sudden and unusual request. With a stern expression, Lenya prepares to begin her inspection of the assembled staff. A nervous chef steps forward, timidly presenting his hands and asking if he's doing it correctly. Internally praying for her plan to work, Lenya takes his hands, intending to use her holy power to reveal any hidden marks. After a quick, glowing inspection, she approves him, leaving the chef stunned by how quickly it ended. Lenya smiles kindly, explaining she just needed to check his hands, and the relieved chef thanks her profusely. She continues her inspection, approving another servant who thanks her as Killian watches on. As person after person shows no reaction, a shadow of doubt crosses Lenya's face as she fears her plan has failed. Just as she wonders what to do, her power suddenly crackles with dark energy as she touches the hands of another servant. Found it, she thinks triumphantly as her holy power reveals a coiled snake tattoo on the man's wrist, the mark of ISIS's agents. The exposed servant panics at the sight of the mark, while a shocked Killian asks Lady Lenya what exactly she is. Lenya quietly reveals that Isis is a sorcerer, which explains the mark, and cheekily tells the stunned Killian she knew through intuition. She explains that her holy power reveals the magical marks Isis places on her subordinates, leaving the culprit speechless. Calling it a slave seal, she reveals that Isis can use the mark to track and even kill her agents at will. The cornered servant desperately denies any connection to Isis or knowledge of the mark on his own wrist. He collapses under the pressure, as Killian observes that Lenya now effectively commands the staff in the prince's absence. Killian suggests they continue investigating the rest of the staff, and Lenya quietly agrees. Surveying the remaining servants, Lenya is surprised to realize there are about 20 spies, far more than she expected. She concludes that since they're all underlings, she can use Killian's authority to dismiss them all at once. Killian gets Lenya's attention, turning to address her formally. To her surprise, Killian and several other royal attendants bow deeply to thank her for her actions. He admits he was worried about the prince's sudden engagement, but now sees his fears were completely unfounded. While Killian admires her as a true lady, Lenya reflects on her real mission, marrying Adrian not for love, but to save the world. She humbly brushes off his praise as simply doing what was natural, causing him to admire her modesty. The two share a moment of mutual respect and understanding amidst a backdrop of blooming flowers. Killian shrewdly asks if her attachment to the prince is why she remains at the palace, causing a flustered Lenya to blush. She internally admits he's right. Though it's not love, she cares for Adrian's happiness, a tragic memory flashing in her mind. Acknowledging his praise for cleansing the palace, Lenya decides she can start to trust Killian more openly. The scene shifts dramatically, focusing on a stormy red sky crackling with lightning, framed in gold. Screech. The story cuts to Prince Adrian, who has just stabbed a massive, winged, red demon. Adrian orders his men to seal the beast's magic power, while the wounded demon lets out a deep gurr. A divine light erupts as Adrian announces the demon's power is fading, and the mine has been purified. Wah-ah! His knights erupt in cheers, celebrating that their highness has successfully reclaimed the Soulstone mine. Adrian stands stoically amidst his victorious and adoring soldiers. Looking down at the defeated demon, Adrian internally reveals he summoned it himself to prevent future trouble, but now it must die. With grim resolve, he lifts his spear, declaring he has no other choice as he prepares to deliver the final blow. A powerful sound effect depicts the final, devastating strike. Standing over the vanquished foe, Adrian listens as his knights celebrate the demon's defeat. A red-haired knight laments the waste of a demon, while Adrian silently reflects that it couldn't be helped. The blonde-haired knight approaches Adrian, reporting that the local villagers wish to host a feast to express their gratitude. Adrian politely declines the feast, telling the female knight they don't have time as she asks if he's leaving immediately. He confirms their departure is urgent, adjusting his armor with a determined look. The blonde knight looks stunned, stammering as she asks what the urgent matter could be. Holding up a glowing green soul stone, Adrian reveals he must deliver it to his fiancée, thanking the villagers for their gifts. The scene shifts to a grand, quiet hall where a lone figure in papal robes stands with his arms crossed. A title card introduces the concerned-looking man as Pope Anton. Pope Anton raises a hand to greet a dark-haired man who is steadily approaching him. The man in the white uniform gracefully kneels before the Pope in a sign of deep respect. Identified as Holy Knight Lucas, he formally offers his greetings to His Holiness the Pope. A recruitment notice seeks translators, proofreaders, and editors for a manga group. Holy Knight Lucas, a man with black hair and striking yellow eyes, formally greets the Pope. The Pope instructs Lucas to rise, informing him of an urgent task, which Lucas promptly asks about. The Pope gravely reveals a gate to the demon world has opened, shocking Lucas as he wonders about its cause. Gazing out a window, the Pope laments that the temple lacks the power to detect the magic from so far away. He turns to Lucas, declaring that the Holy Knight is the only one he can rely on to investigate the cause in the Empire. Lucas accepts the mission, and a narration confirms the Holy Knight's departure to investigate the demon world's gate. Cough. In a dark room, Adrian uses purple energy to choke a woman with long, braided red hair. The red-haired woman screams in agony as a voice commands her to return to the magic tower. Adrian angrily reminds her that their relationship is merely cooperative, and she has no right to order him around. He stands over the defeated woman, who has collapsed to her knees on the floor. Struggling, she snarls that no matter how hard he tries, his origins can never be overturned. Looking down with cold disdain, Adrian tells her to never forget that fact. She retorts that he should remember it as well, looking up from the floor with defiance. A sinister smile crosses her face as she warns him that showing mercy to fools is what doomed that person. A final warning echoes. Do not let trivial emotions cause him to lose sight of the greater cause. In a sunlit room, a pink-haired woman awakens at her desk, having fallen asleep while studying a mountain of books. Looking up with wide, curious eyes, she lets out a confused, "Huh." Her eyes land on a glowing green gem on her desk, and she wonders how a soul stone got there. Startled by a voice, she turns as someone asks if she's finally awake. She's shocked to see Adrian, quickly getting up and asking him when he returned. He explains he arrived at dawn and asks if she likes his gift, prompting her to realize he means the soul stone. Adrian confirms it is the soul stone, much to her wide-eyed delight, as she exclaims, "I knew it!" As he asks if it's her first time seeing one, she internally marvels at his refreshing smile, questioning his intense efforts to win her over. She thanks him and offers a return gift, an invitation to witness her familia grow, which he happily accepts. A wave of anxiety hits her as she worries he'll be disappointed by her small familiar P, just as the Duke was. P! With a brilliant flash of light and a cheerful sound, a tiny, adorable yellow chick appears. She introduces her familia, explaining its temporary name is P, while Adrian listens thoughtfully. Holding the tiny creature, Lenya looks on lovingly as it lets out a questioning, "Peep?" Adrian smiles warmly, reassuring her that P's existence alone is irreplaceable to him. Her expression darkens as she questions if her abilities are irrelevant to him, wondering if the marriage itself is his only goal. Adrian suggests they go ahead and help P grow, presenting the soul stone to the small chick. Lenya prepares for the ritual, bringing P and the soul stone together, thinking a simple touch should be enough. Wow! A sudden burst of energy sends Lenya stumbling backward, but Adrian catches her as a large feather floats down. Holding her steady, Adrian looks on in concern as Lenya stammers P's name, both of them watching the floating feather. Before them stands a magnificent, giant pink and red bird with a fiery crest, shocking them both. Lenya stares in disbelief, a faint sense of familiarity washing over her as she looks at the spirit. She suddenly remembers a dream where a majestic bird, looking exactly like P, had appeared. Adrian remarks on the spirit's otherworldly beauty, inspiring Lenya to ask if she could showcase P at the royal ball. He looks at her intently, encouraging her to proudly show the magnificent creature off. He leans in close, specifying she should reveal it at their wedding, causing Lenya to realize the emperor can no longer object to their marriage. Lenya anxiously considers her new in-laws, a cunning emperor and an empress who tried to assassinate Ed. A silver-haired man approaches, asking a worried Lenya if she's all right. Leaning closer, he wonders if she's regretting their contract, his expression intense. Internally, Lenya chides herself for letting her guard down, reminding herself she's merely a chess piece to him. She reassures the silver-haired man not to worry, just as an owl taps at the window. A thought bubble identifies the owl as Ludwig's familiar, carrying a sealed letter. The silver-haired man notes the letter must be from her father as the owl flies inside. Lenya's face contorts in shock and horror as she reads the letter's contents. Panicked, she tells the silver-haired man she must go to the north, and he asks what happened. Tears streaming down her face, she cries out that her brother Nick has collapsed. Outside the palace, Lenya apologizes for leaving during wedding preparations, but Adrian tells her not to worry about a family emergency. Adrian explains he's too busy to go himself and introduces her escorts, Senior Knight Corolla and Advanced Knight Alexis. Now wearing a traveling cloak, Lenya accepts their help and thanks the assembled staff. Advanced Knight Alexis formally offers his hand to assist her. A strange, uneasy feeling washes over Lenya as she takes his hand, wondering why she feels this way around Alexis. She notes his hand is cold and clammy, making her worry that he might be unwell. Sudden vision shows a bloodied and crying Lenya looking up at a silver-haired man, weakly calling out the name Ed. In the vision, she clings to the man, begging him to reconsider as he gazes down at her with a pained expression. He holds her limp body, calling out her name, Lenya, as a small bird-like object falls from her dress. His face fills with anguish as he desperately shouts for her not to go and not to die. A brilliant light emanates from her as she touches his chest, telling him that if he truly loves her, she begs him not to leave her as he holds her tightly, pleading with her to stay. Tears stream down his face as he clutches her lifeless body, whispering, "Please, don't go." Ha! With a gasp, Adrian jolts awake in bed, tears still on his face. He realizes with horror that he dreamt of Lenya dying, but the grief and pain felt terrifyingly real. Gripping his head, he's left to wonder why he had such a vivid and painful dream. On their journey, a nauseous Lenya apologizes for her motion sickness. Alexis reassures her they needed to stop for supplies anyway, suggesting she visit the apothecary while he and Corolla shop. She watches him walk away, her concern for him lingering. Lenya recalls he seemed unwell before they even left, and wonders if he's injured. Alexis stumbles into a quiet alley, clutching his head in agony. He worries about his worsening headache, but a sinister voice suddenly commands him to stop hesitating and kill her. He recoils in shock, wondering about the hallucination as the voice orders him to kill Lenya von Mont now. The blonde knight stands frozen in horror and confusion. A sharp pain shoots through his head as the murderous command echoes again. Thud. He collapses to his knees among dark roses, his eyes glowing with a menacing red light. In a marketplace, Lenya shows Senior Knight Corolla a uniquely shaped dagger. Corolla suggests it would be good for self-defense, and Lenya considers buying it. Lenya pauses, her attention captured by something in the market stalls. She picks up an ornate dagger with strange markings on the blade, studying it with intrigue. Showing it to Corolla, she asks about the inscription, which Corolla identifies as an ancient script. Corolla translates the ancient text. "One swift strike will pierce the darkness of night." Lenya decides to purchase the dagger anyway, and Corolla reminds her they must return to their captain soon. A mysterious hooded man interrupts them, stating he senses an ominous presence around Lenya, which startles her. Badump. Her heart thumps nervously as she looks at the stranger. Lenya tries to politely excuse them, saying they're in a hurry because they have an ill person with them. The hooded man offers his assistance, revealing he possesses healing abilities. Stay back. Corolla draws her sword to protect Lenya, who cries out her name in surprise. Lenya urges Corolla to calm down, saying the man seems harmless and they should just go. The hooded man, Holy Knight Lucas, watches them with an unreadable expression. As Lenya thanks the man and departs with Corolla, she shares a final, meaningful glance with him. Holy Knight Lucas watches them walk away, remaining silent and thoughtful in the busy street. As night falls, Corolla announces they must camp out, which Lenya accepts, blaming her motion sickness for the delay. Corolla thanks the hooded man as he inwardly muses that he can't stop thinking about what someone said and found no mark of ISIS on them. Thud. While the hooded man wonders if he's overthinking, Lenya suddenly collapses among a bed of dark roses. Lenya looks up in shock to see Corolla has fallen, frantically calling her name as a voice addresses her as Lady Lenya. She sees Corolla collapse by the fire, looking completely unconscious. A menacing Alexis stands over her, warning that she's mistaken to think everything will go her way. Confused, Lenya asks what he is doing, and he retorts, asking if she dares to make a fool of him as well. Keke? His eyes glow red as he smiles cruelly, asking if she has forgotten the words she once spoke to him. He taunts her for boasting she understood his highness better than anyone, causing Lenya to recoil in horror, wondering if it's Isis. Lenya tries to wake Corolla, insisting it's impossible since there was no mark on his wrist, but Alexis reveals Corolla is asleep from leaves he put in the stew. As Alexis's dark-gloved hand reaches for her, Lenya stands her ground, a pink energy emanating from her in defiance. Gah! Recognizing the dagger from the market, she lunges forward and brutally stabs a shocked Alexis, sending blood flying. With a determined, desperate smile, Lenya thinks to herself, "All right," but the dagger shatters in her hand, leaving her staring at the broken hilt in disbelief as she cries out, "Whoa, why?" Hand suddenly clamps down around her throat. Alexis chokes Lenya, coldly informing her that her journey ends now. He sneers that he can't let a mere girl ruin a 500-year plan as Lenya chokes, thinking she doesn't want to die pointlessly like the original Lenya. Fading into darkness, she despairs over following the villain's fate and failing to save Ed once again. A hazy consciousness returns as she wonders if she is dreaming. She finds herself standing in a grand throne room, a place that feels strangely familiar. She realizes with dread that this is the place where the original Lenya died, envisioning a man holding her bloodied, lifeless body. Noticing a distinct scar on the man's neck, she deduces that this scene must take place after her own death. She wonders what the silver-haired man is looking at and identifies it as a memory crystal, a tool that captures one's happiest moment before death. Shocked that he's watching memories of Lenya, she questions why, since she was nothing more than a pawn to Ed. As Adrian, now identified as Lord Adrian, stands silently, a pink-haired woman informs him that the Emperor has declared war and he must decide. The woman asks Adrian if he will end things as she wished with her final words. Adrian clenches the crystal, declaring it isn't the end, as the woman orders him to open the demon gates and continue attacking the Empire. A troubled young man with blue-gray hair quietly considers the consequences of such an action. Amidst a background of roses, a voice resolves that by doing so, they can correct all their mistakes. Lenya's eyes snap open in terror as she gasps for air. Shaken, she wonders what just happened, feeling the dream was far too vivid. Alexis approaches, commenting that she woke up sooner than he'd expected. He smirks, suspecting her holy power is the reason, and that there must be a secret behind it. He grabs her face, deciding to take her alive for an investigation. As she stares back in terror, he mockingly asks if she's finally afraid, reminding her she has no allies here. A brilliant flash interrupts him as a sword swings down from above. Thwack! The blow connects with a powerful impact. Holy Knight Lucas stands over the defeated Alexis, asking Lenya if she's all right, while she dazedly asks why he's there. He explains that he couldn't ignore the ominous presence he had sensed from her earlier. With a swift motion, he cuts the ropes binding Lenya's hands. Wait. Lenya's eyes widen in sudden realization. She stares at the black-haired knight as he sheathes his sword, her mind racing. A sudden thought strikes her as she wonders if he could possibly be this world's protagonist, Lucas, as she recalls a heroic image of him with another woman. Flustered, she can't believe she's met the story's main character in such a dire situation. Lucas confirms her suspicions, stating that the ominous presence he felt was coming from the cursed knight. He elaborates that a powerful curse was placed on Alexis by a skilled magician, controlling his actions. Lucas concludes that Alexis surely would have died if left in that cursed state, shocking Lenya into repeating his words in horror. Lenya realizes with dread that a skilled knight like Alexis never appeared in the original story because he was supposed to have been killed by Isis's curse, and she chides herself for ignoring her initial uneasy feeling. As Lenya watches, Holy Knight Lucas kneels and places a glowing hand over the unconscious Alexis, beginning a purification ritual. Looking on with concern, Lenya asks if he intends to use his holy power to heal the cursed knight. Lucas calmly explains that he will first purify the dark magic inside Alexis's body before any healing can begin. Lenya is amazed by the immense display of holy power as Lucas successfully purifies the now bound and unconscious Corolla. Phew! With a sigh of relief, Lucas finishes the purification, a bead of sweat on his brow. He suddenly staggers, and Lenya rushes to his side, asking worriedly if he is okay. Huff, huff. Kneeling in exhaustion, Lucas explains he overused his holy power, not just on the knights, but also on his horse to catch up to them, which shocks Lenya. Lenya now understands how he managed to arrive so quickly without a familiar. Eh? Without warning, Lucas collapses from the strain of using his power. Lenya stands alone amidst her 3 unconscious companions, panicking about what to do next. As Corolla begins to stir, Lenya calls out her name in relief. Jolt. A disoriented Corolla sits up, asking what happened, and Lenya begins to explain. Corolla looks past Lenya to the fallen Alexis, worriedly asking about their captain. Seeing the black-haired man, Corolla's thoughts race back to the suspicious person from the market. Corolla demands to know why he's there, and why everyone collapsed, but Lenya cryptically replies that it's a long story. Ahaha. Lenya cheerfully deflects the questions, suggesting they all head for the Duke's castle. The scene transitions to a grand castle, where a man with light brown hair walks through a flowered courtyard. The man pauses, feeling that someone is coming, and looks up at the castle. A white-haired man orders the castle gates opened, as his attendant asks if he is departing. He clarifies that a guest is arriving. Though looking nervous, the butler acknowledges the order. Creak! As the massive castle gates swing open, a bird-like creature is seen flying towards the castle. The butler walks toward the entrance, sensing that something is approaching. The butler gasps in utter shock at what he sees. He cries out, "Lady Lenya!" as she arrives on a giant griffin, waving cheerfully and greeting the creature, Ludwig. A thought bubble notes that since it's been less than a month, her room should still be the same. The scene shows her former office, quiet and untouched. Relieved she wasn't kicked out, Lenya watches the Duke walk away coolly, thinking it wasn't a very warm reunion. Now, at her desk, Lenya resolves to immediately write a letter to Ed to warn him about Isis. A dark memory surfaces of being choked while realizing Isis's mark can control people, sparking fear for others. She worries about how to deliver her letter, doubting she can ask Ludwig to make the journey. A small, pink, phoenix-like creature named P appears, and Lenya asks it for a favor. She points to a map, asking P to deliver her letter to the royal palace, and it chirps questioningly. As P hesitates, Lenya worriedly asks if the task is impossible. Pi! Suddenly resolved, P puffs out its chest, ready for the mission. Lenya waves goodbye as P flies away with the letter. Confident Ed will handle things from there. Her urgent task complete, Lenya turns and approaches a large, ornate door. She cautiously opens the door, peering inside to check on her brother Nick. Nick calls out from his bed but nearly falls as he tries to stand, prompting her to rush to his side. She gently pushes him back to sit down, telling him to close his eyes because it's about to get bright. Covering his eyes with her hand, she channels her holy power, which begins to glow. A radiant vision of Lenya appears before him as she smiles and asks how that feels. Nick looks at his glowing hands in amazement, feeling his body become light and asking if she just used holy power. Overjoyed, Nick grabs her hands, exclaiming how great she is, while she reminds him not to overdo it. He explains his exhaustion by admitting he's been staying up all night recently, and she asks for how many days. When he admits it's been 5 days, Lenya erupts in anger, shouting it's no wonder he collapsed. He confesses he just wanted to be there for her wedding. Confused by his reason, Lenya wonders what he's talking about. He turns to her with a warm smile, catching her off guard. He gestures toward a magical projection of a beautiful tropical island, asking if she thinks it's beautiful. Nick offers Lenya a beautiful, sparkling island as a wedding gift, leaving her speechless. He explains the island is the source of rare tulip pearls, and Lenya acknowledges their high value. Nick declares that owning the island means owning the pearls, but a shocked Lenya insists she doesn't want it. Gently touching her face, Nick promises she will become the island's master on her wedding day. Lenya pulls away politely and turns to leave the room. As she opens the door, she's surprised to find the black-haired man, who explains he was told a sick person was here. Lenya clarifies that people were sick, and the black-haired man states the Duke ordered him to treat them. She proudly explains she already healed her brother with her holy powers, piquing the black-haired man's curiosity. The black-haired man suddenly cups her face, declaring he will check if she has truly received the goddess's grace, flustering her. He leans in close, his intense gaze fixed on her as he prepares to inspect her power. An angry Nick suddenly intervenes, grabbing Lucas's wrist and ordering him not to touch his sister without permission. Lucas bows apologetically, claiming he only wanted to see if she had holy power, which makes Lenya wonder how that can even be measured. He answers that he was able to check by looking into her eyes, much to Lenya's confusion. With a gentle smile, Lucas tells her he saw the light of holy power in her eyes, describing it as a beautiful sparkle. Lenya privately thinks his words sound like a confession, while an irritated Nick demands to know who this man is. The Holy Knight formally introduces himself as Lucas Muspel of Elta. Lucas explains they sensed a disturbing flow of magic in the capital and came to investigate. Lenya panics internally, realizing this event is happening far too soon. She anxiously wonders if the magic belongs to Isis or something else entirely. When she asks what kind of disturbance he sensed, Lucas reveals that someone has opened the gate to the demon world. A horrifying realization dawns on Lenya. The target isn't Isis, it's Ed. She panics, blaming herself and recalling Ed sending demons back so he could marry her. Believing it's too dangerous to let Lucas go, Lenya quickly calls out to him as he prepares to leave. She offers to escort him to the capital, reasoning that traveling with them would be faster than riding a horse alone. Lucas considers her offer and asks when she plans to leave. Lenya replies that a spirit can make the journey in 2 days. With a pleasant smile, Lenya invites him to rest at the castle until they are ready to depart. Relieved that she's delayed Lucas, Lenya quickly rushes off to check on her companions. She peers into a room, certain that Alexis and Corolla are staying there. She bursts into a chaotic scene of destruction, crying out for help as staff flee in terror. Lenya tries to calm Corolla, whose familiar is rampaging wildly and screeching for its leader. Corolla and Lenya watch in horror as the giant bird continues its rampage, crying out for its commander. The berserk familiar looms over a terrified Alexis, completely out of control. Standing amidst the wreckage, a stunned Lenya asks Corolla what is happening. A tearful Corolla looks toward Lenya and apologizes, confessing she never meant to hurt her. As the familiar continues to rage, Lenya reaches out, urging Corolla to calm herself and her agitated creature. Suddenly, her father appears, sternly asking what is going on as Lenya looks at him in surprise. The Duke scolds Lenya for being unable to manage a single night, prompting her to ask him to summon his familiar for help. He dismisses her plea as unnecessary and turns to leave, ignoring Lenya's desperate call for him to wait. The Duke stands coldly over the kneeling and tearful Corolla, who addresses him with reverence. Corolla confesses she attacked Lenya despite her oath to protect her and offers to atone with her life. The Duke responds with chilling indifference, stating he won't stop her if she insists on dying. His mind flashes back to Lenya, asking for protection, a memory that seems to give him pause as she watches in shock. A powerful silence hangs in the air as the Duke stands over the kneeling, devoted knight. Corolla looks up, her face flushed with a mix of fear and determination. A brilliant light emanates from the Duke, bathing the room in its glow, as everyone watches. Alexis addresses both the Duke and Lady Lenya as the tense situation seemingly de-escalates. With a warm smile, Alexis takes Lenya's hand, a gesture of reconciliation and gratitude. Lenya smiles back, her expression one of pure happiness and relief. Alexis respectfully kisses her hand, offering a sincere thank you. Later, Corolla informs Lenya and Alexis that the Duke had to leave for business. Alexis and Corolla praise the Duke's mercy and charm, while Lenya listens with a thoughtful expression. Lenya internally questions the Duke's popularity, knowing he played an active role in the Demon War despite his cold heart. She worries about her brother Nick, wondering if the healing potions she made will be enough for him. Looking at a row of potions, Lenya appears nervous and sweats slightly as she considers the limited supply. She frets that the potions will only last 2 weeks and fears she'll collapse if she tries to make more. Gotcha. Peeking through a doorway, she's surprised to find Lucas inside the room. Flustered, a blushing Lenya apologizes for intruding on the shirtless Holy Knight Lucas. A shirtless Lucas, holding his white top, turns to ask her what's going on. Lenya asks if he could spare some healing potions, but he says it's difficult as his own holy power is still recovering. He then asks why she needs potions right now, looking at her with a curious expression. She explains with a weary look that her brother Nick overdid it while preparing a grand wedding present for her. With Lucas listening intently, Lenya laments that her brother won't listen to reason, so she must prepare potions for him. Lucas suggests it would be better to address the psychological reasons driving her brother to work himself to the bone. Lenya falls silent, thoughtfully considering Lucas's suggestion. Memory of Nick presenting her with the island flashes through her mind, revealing the source of his overexertion. Thud. Her thoughts are interrupted by a sudden sound, and she looks up in surprise. She sees a serene, shirtless Lucas now sitting cross-legged amidst a magical bloom of flowers. Stunned, Lenya asks if he's meditating, and he calmly confirms that he is. Lucas explains that meditation helps him absorb holy energy to recover faster, prompting Lenya to wonder about the differences in their methods. His eyes remain closed in deep concentration as he focuses on his recovery. A sudden realization dawns on Lenya as she wonders about the concentration of holy power in the air. She recalls a vision of a large, ornate egg decorated with golden, feathery wings. With a flash of inspiration, Lenya thanks a confused Lucas and quickly rushes out, saying she has something urgent to do. She bursts in on her father, excitedly declaring she's discovered how to grow the mysterious seed he's held for 20 years, leaving him stunned. Lenya strikes a deal, asking for a favor if her method works, and her father agrees, demanding to know the requirement. She smiles triumphantly, holding up her finger as she prepares to reveal the secret. The Duke repeats her answer in disbelief, shocked to learn the requirement is the level of power in the air. As Lenya insists it's worth a try, her father grabs her arm, asking in astonishment if she can use holy power. She tells him she needs to concentrate and will explain later as a brilliant golden aura begins to surround her. Lenya channels her holy power, pouring a blinding light into the ornate egg. Crack! The egg shatters, and a vibrant green sprout magically emerges, sparkling with divine energy. Both she and the Duke watch in shock as the small plant unfurls from the egg in her hands. As her father marvels at the instant growth, Lenya pours even more holy power into the sprout, determined to make it grow faster. The plant explodes with growth, rapidly expanding within a protective barrier of light. Look out! Her father shouts, pulling her back as the plant erupts in a blinding flash of energy. They are thrown to the floor by the powerful blast. Stunned, they look up to find a magnificent, fully bloomed cherry blossom tree now stands where the sprout was. The scene shifts to a furious Ed, who slams his pen down on his desk while his attendant watches silently. Ed rubs his temple, chiding himself for his uncharacteristic behavior. He blames a haunting dream of holding a dying Lenya, confessing he hasn't been able to stop thinking of her since. His attendant asks if he's worried about Lenya, and Ed confirms that he is, while holding a magically imbued letter. Tap, tap. Their conversation is interrupted by Lenya's phoenix, P, tapping at the window with the letter. The attendant recognizes P as it flies in. Ed snatches the letter, and his face darkens with rage as he reads its contents. He springs to his feet, declaring they are heading north immediately, revealing to his shocked attendant that ISIS tried to kill Lenya. Ed crushes the letter in his fist, his expression one of pure, cold fury. Back in the greenhouse, Lenya and the Duke sit together in the quiet aftermath, gazing at the beautiful blossom tree. A single tear rolls down Lenya's cheek as she looks up at her father with a bewildered expression. The Duke rises to his feet, his back turned to her. He stands in profile, his face a stoic mask as pink petals drift around him. Lenya confronts him, asking why he never told her about her mother, but he coldly dismisses her, saying they can't dwell on the past. She passionately argues that her mother, Lilia, cherished the seed until the very end. The Duke tells Lenya she can ask for any favor she wants now that the seed has sprouted. Lenya looks thoughtful as she considers what to ask for. Later, in her room, Lenya sits on her bed, holding an ornate black and gold box. The Duke presents her with the box, asking if she is sure this is all she desires for her favor. Holding the box close, Lenya confirms her one wish is to learn more about her mother. A glowing crystal reveals Lenya's reflection, containing the memories of her mother. As the crystal shines with a brilliant light, Lenya stares at it in astonishment. A memory shows an attendant advising the young Duke to welcome his bride. The Duke confirms he is going. The Duke internally scoffs at having to welcome a defective bride without holy power, seeing no need for sincerity. The young Duke watches from behind as an elegant carriage awaits. He opens the carriage door and coldly orders a red-haired woman to get out. His expression is stern and resolute as he confronts his new bride. Lenya watches a memory of her sad mother, Lilia, arriving from a faraway land, realizing both her parents were unhappy with the marriage. The Duke tells Lilia she cannot stay in the carriage forever and must come with him. He reaches out and gently takes her hand. Lilia looks up at him with teary eyes and offers her thanks. Back in the present, Lenya watches the memory, realizing her parents fell in love. The revelation leaves her completely stunned. The memory shifts to a pregnant Lilia meditating, as the Duke asks her to rest for the baby's sake. Lilia hopes her child will be born with holy power, but the Duke just wants a healthy baby. Lenya recalls an oracle about her mother giving birth to the world's most powerful child. Lenya realizes that when she was born without holy power, she was seen as a defect. As her father looks at a sad Lilia and whispers her name, Lilia declares her wish for a healthy, beautiful daughter with strong holy powers, and her husband smiles, agreeing to support her. He offers to help her, as she thanks him, calling him Matthias, as they share an intimate moment. The memory shifts to Lilia in bed after giving birth, and Lenya recognizes the scene as the day she was born. A heartbroken young Nicholas and Maximilian watch as their dying mother calls out their names, revealing this is the day she died. With her last breath, Lilia asks Nicholas to protect his sister so she can always smile, then apologizes for leaving him. As the two boys watch in horror, their father collapses in grief over Lilia's lifeless body. A tear falls from Lenya's eye onto the memory crystal. Overwhelmed with sorrow, Lenya cries, wondering if her mother would have lived if she had never been born. She reflects on her guilt, feeling responsible despite only being reincarnated as Lenya. Her grief is interrupted by Ed, who suddenly appears and kneels before her, asking why he's there. Ed asks if she's okay after hearing Isis attacked her, but Lenya is stunned that he came for her instead of pursuing Isis. He comforts her, promising to protect her, but she suddenly has a worrying second thought. Panicked, Lenya realizes that if Ed stays, he will inevitably meet Lucas, a situation she knows is not good. Lenya urges Ed to return to the palace, but he observes that she doesn't seem happy to see him. She explains that a holy knight of Elta is present to investigate magical disturbances, shocking Ed. Lenya assumes the knight is after Isis, and decides she must send Ed away to protect him from getting involved. Putting on a brave face, Lenya invites Ed to a dinner party, nervously insisting she isn't trying to run away. Ed gives her a knowing and gentle smile. Looking troubled, Lenya reluctantly agrees to let him stay. She asks him to wait for a moment while she goes to get ready. Lenya frets that she must get ready alone to avoid causing a commotion if her maid Hannah finds Ed in her room. As she changes into a new blue gown, she feels awkward with Ed in the same room. Lenya calls out to Ed, who has been politely looking away. Dressed in a beautiful gown, she turns and asks His Highness if he would help tie the cord on her back. Ed steps behind her, placing his hands on her arms as she timidly accepts his help. Blushing, Lenya wonders why she feels so flustered by the simple request. A close-up shows Ed's hands about to fasten the corset of her dress. Ed watches her intently as he prepares to help. His fingers skillfully begin to tighten the laces on her gown. Flustered after his hand slips, Ed apologizes, but a blushing Lenya quickly says it's okay. Lenya looks back, impressed, thinking to herself that Ed is quite skilled with his hands. Now fully dressed, Ed suggests they head to the party venue, and Lenya agrees. With a clever smile, Lenya says that before they go, she has something to show him. She leads him to a bench in front of the magnificent blossoming pink tree. Ed marvels at the sight, telling her she never ceases to surprise him, and she thanks him. Lenya nervously admits this is her first official event with her fiancé, and the first time they've held hands in public. Ed smirks and asks if she wants to practice, leaving Lenya confused by his suggestion. A close-up shows Lenya's startled and blushing face. Ed clarifies he means good couples practice, leaning in closer, but a flustered Lenya protests, pointing out that they're in a public space with many people around. He gently holds her, suggesting they just do it for 10 minutes, leaving her speechless and flustered. Her heart pounds as she places a hand on his chest. Ed pulls her into a gentle embrace, creating a quiet, intimate moment between them. Lenya asks if 10 minutes have passed, but Ed leans closer, whispering that it's time for the next step. He brings a finger to his lips, giving her a mischievous and suggestive look. Lenya objects loudly, reminding him their contract forbids such intimacy for 3 years, but he calmly explains that exceptions are allowed to demonstrate an amicable marriage. Peeking from behind the foliage, a tiny Lenya frets about the public setting, while a tiny Ed argues it's their chance to show off how happy they are. Ed puts on a wounded expression, asking if she's so embarrassed by him that she would refuse. Backing down, a flustered Lenya insists that's not what she meant. Their tense moment is interrupted as Lucas calls out to Lady Lenya, causing them both to turn in surprise. Lucas explains he came to see the miraculously grown tree, and happen to hear her voice. Lenya gives an awkward reply as Ed sits silently, glaring at the newcomer. Lucas and Ed lock eyes, an immediate and unspoken rivalry sparking between them. Lenya suddenly pulls Lucas away, warning him to get away from Ed because she senses a tremendous evil vibe coming from him. Ed grabs Lenya's wrist, pulling her back and sarcastically apologizing to Lucas for being evil. Pulling a stunned Lenya into his arms, Ed formally introduces himself as her fiancé, Second Prince Adrian Vant. Lucas stares in shock, repeating the word fiancé in disbelief. Lucas quickly apologizes, explaining he mistakenly thought he sensed magic, prompting Ed to wonder if it's because of an item he carries. Ed reveals a vial of purple energy, explaining it's a demon fang he carries for protection, which Lucas recognizes as a demonic sign. Ed correctly deduces Lucas is from Elta, and Lucas introduces himself as a holy knight. Lenya adds that he's investigating an ominous magical power. Ed smoothly suggests the disturbance might be Isis, earning an internal perfect reply cheer from Lenya. Lenya internally seethes, remembering that Isis was the one who tried to kill her, and used black magic to summon demons. Ed takes charge, telling Lucas he will handle Isis himself and share any leads, effectively ending their conversation. With the tension diffused, Lenya cheerfully announces it is time for the party to start in the main hall. At the banquet, guests gossip excitedly about Miss Lenya marrying Prince Adrian, calling them a perfect couple, just as the main doors swing open. Lenya and Ed make their grand entrance, standing side by side in a shower of flower petals. An announcer presents the royal couple, and the crowd offers congratulations on their wedding. Lenya feels embarrassed by the attention, but she glances over and notices that Ed seems completely unfazed. Ed leans in close to a blushing Lenya, playfully asking if she wants to kiss him right there. A chibi Lenya adamantly refuses, declaring she is putting off the kiss until the wedding, while a chibi Ed pouts that she must still be embarrassed. Changing the subject, Lenya scans the room and notes her brother Nick isn't present, which Ed confirms. She worries aloud that Nick is overworking again, flashing back to a memory of his exhausted but happy face. As she moves to go check on him, Ed firmly grabs her hand, telling her no. He holds her hand tightly, his expression serious as he reminds her she nearly died last time, and that he needs her by his side today. His heartfelt words leave Lenya speechless and visibly moved. Lenya reassures him that the castle is safe and she wouldn't leave, but Ed challenges her to prove it. He gently cups her cheek, his gaze soft and intent. Her breath hitches as she stares into his eyes, completely captivated. Ed leans in and gives her a tender, surprising kiss. The scene lingers on his hand, caressing her face, highlighting the intimacy of their first kiss. He pulls her into a passionate kiss, surrounded by a halo of blooming white flowers. After the kiss, Ed asks if that proves his sincerity, leaving a stunned Lenya speechless. He calmly tells a surprised Lenya that he's leaving now. Lenya smiles brightly and tells him she'll be right back as she hurries away, leaving Ed to watch her go. Alone now, a flustered Ed blushes deeply, touching his lips as he recalls their kiss. On a balcony, Ed reflects that the emotions he had been suppressing almost exploded. The flashback shifts to an even younger Ed, who smiles sweetly while holding a small yellow bird, calling it cute. He gently holds the bird, calling it adorable and affectionately naming it his little lemon. His expression darkens, and his eyes glow with a sinister light as he possessively thinks, "You belong to me." "You're mine!" Splattered with blood, a horrified young Ed snaps back to his senses, confused about what just happened. A silver-haired woman in a purple dress rushes toward the room. The woman, his mother, bursts in and asks a stunned Ed what's wrong, her own eyes wide with shock. Holding the bloody remains of the bird, a tearful young Ed apologizes, admitting he couldn't resist because it was too cute. He begs his mother to bring Lemon back to life, promising he will never do it again. His mother gently tells the blood-stained Ed that what's dead can never come back to life. She explains that demon desires are strong and dangerous, warning him he must learn to control his emotions due to his demon blood. A tearful Ed asks what will happen if he can't. She warns him that he'll destroy everything he cares about and must not let his desires control him, as the scene returns to the present-day Ed on the balcony. Back in the present, Ed reflects that he had learned to control his magic so well he'd forgotten its danger until now. A blonde-haired man in a blue uniform rushes up, urgently calling for His Highness. The man apologizes profusely, saying the recent incident was his fault and that he'll accept any punishment. Ed sighs, telling the man he'll let it go this time, since it was his own fault for being deceived. The blonde man is surprised by this leniency, but Ed explains that Lenya sent a letter asking him not to be too harsh, which shocks the man. Ed turns to the blonde man, asking how Lenya could have known about the situation. The man, Alexis, tearfully thinks about how strong, beautiful, and kind Lenya is. Ed glares menacingly at a terrified Alexis, asking why he's calling Lenya's name with such ecstasy. With a dark smile, Ed declares that Lenya is his fiancée, and his suppressed burning desire to possess her is rising again as Alexis begs for forgiveness. The scene changes to Lenya finding her brother Nick in his office, who says he was just about to leave. Holding a large bouquet, Lenya gently scolds Nick for overworking himself again. She asks him to rest, especially today, in memory of their mother, and he looks at her, touched. As he hesitates, Lenya tells him she knows he's taking care of her because of his promise to their mother. Nick is surprised she knows, and Lenya explains that their father showed her the crystal of remembrance. Nick insists he must fulfill his duty as the eldest son for their mother, but Lenya questions if that's truly what their mother would want. Lenya sadly reminds him that their mother never wanted expensive gifts from him. Nick agrees, recalling that their mother only wanted him to ensure Lenya always had a smile on her face. Lenya confronts him directly, asking him to look at her and see if she is truly smiling. With tears in her eyes, she pleads with him to stop overworking himself for her sake and for their mother's memory. Filled with regret, Nick apologizes for his words as Lenya continues to cry. He pulls his crying sister into a warm, comforting embrace. After the hug, Lenya asks if he's not buying the island anymore, but Nick looks away guiltily and apologizes. He reveals with a sheepish smile that he has, in fact, already bought it, leaving Lenya utterly stunned. Nick beams, his happy expression a stark contrast to his earlier somber mood. Lenya is deeply moved, realizing this is the first gift from family she's received since her grandmother died in her past life. Telling him not to make her cry again, Lenya wipes her tears as Nick apologizes. She reflects that she's finally experiencing tearful happiness. As she heads to her room, Nick teases her about her puffy eyes while she thinks about how moved she feels. Lenya arrives back at her room, cautiously peeking inside. She's startled to find Prince Ed waiting for her, remarking on his imposing presence, and he confirms it is her room. Ed explains that he came to her room when she didn't return and asks what's wrong. With a sly, knowing smile, Ed tells her that he wants her to praise him. Lenya senses the atmosphere has changed as Ed tells her that he is actually very strict about mistakes. Ed takes Lenya's hand, explaining that because he was so strict, he was just about to scold Alexis. A shocked and blushing Lenya stares with wide eyes, completely taken aback. Overwhelmed by his own actions, a blushing Ed thinks he held back his anger because he wanted his wife to praise him, wondering what this feeling is. Ed continues to blush, internally questioning his own desire for his wife's praise. Lenya looks up at him, flustered and confused by his sudden closeness. As Lenya reaches for him, Ed leans in closer, thinking he wants more than just a hug and asking if she's going to compliment him. A blushing Lenya ponders how exactly she should give him a compliment. She awkwardly pats his head amidst a background of cute cats, asking if this is what he wanted, but he remains silent. Grabbing her wrist, Ed firmly tells her that a simple pat isn't enough. He suddenly sweeps a surprised Lenya into his arms, and she cries out for him to wait. Ed gently lays a stunned Lenya down on a bed. Looking down at her with a blush, Ed lets out a heavy sigh. He leans in and plants a soft kiss on her cheek as a tear escapes her eye. Startled, Lenya gasps as he gently kisses her ear. He moves lower, kissing her neck as she arches back, flustered. As he continues kissing her, Lenya breathes heavily, desperately wishing she could cancel their skinship agreement. Looking up at him, she breathlessly begs him to stop. He nuzzles her neck, ignoring her plea as she lets out a soft moan. Clutching his jacket, Lenya thinks about how frustrating it is that she secretly wants to ask for more herself. Looking at her intensely, Ed whispers for her to accept him. With his eyes glowing, Ed thinks about making her completely his, but Lenya shoves him away at the last second. Catching her breath, a shaken Lenya thinks that was a close call. Looking hurt, a blushing Ed asks if she hates him that much. Lenya turns away, denying his accusation while admitting to herself that it actually felt really good. She recalls the intense moment, thinking it felt so good she was about to melt, but knows she can't continue down that path. With a red cape billowing behind him, Ed turns and walks away as Lenya watches him go. Lenya clenches her fist, determined not to be Ed's plaything like the original character in the story.
She tells Ed she doesn't hate him, but didn't agree to this kind of physical relationship, leaving him confused.
Lenya clarifies she doesn't want a loveless physical relationship, and they both look tense. Sitting opposite him, she lays out her assumption that their marriage is a political arrangement for status and royalty, to which he says nothing. Lenya proposes they maintain a business relationship until feelings develop, offering her family's power, but warning him not to use her emotions. A shocked Ed asks what he should do if he already has feelings for her. She looks at him steadily and challenges him to prove it to her again. Lenya gently cups his cheek, surprising him with her touch. She looks him directly in the eyes and asks if he truly loves her. A flustered and sweating Ed is unable to answer, remaining completely silent. Pulling her hand away, Lenya notes his silence proves he can't say it. Turning her back on a stunned Ed, she warns him never to hold her again without love. Lenya acknowledges his worries over Isis's betrayal, but insists that this is still not acceptable. Ed stands and turns to leave, apologizing and blaming his actions on being drunk before telling her to forget it. After the door slams shut, a disappointed Lenya realizes he was hoping for a different reaction from her. The scene transitions to a bright, sunny day over the magnificent royal palace. Holed up in her room, a dejected Lenya hears a knock at the door and wonders if Ed has returned. A silver-haired man appears, asking for a word, and Lenya realizes it's her father. Her father leads her up a quiet stone staircase. He explains that he felt she should be the one to tell her mother, Lilia, about her marriage. Leading her into the family mausoleum, her father explains that this is where the Mont family is traditionally laid to rest. He stands before a portrait of his late wife, Lilia, and quietly vows that he will be with her again one day. Lenya looks on with a sad and pensive expression. She looks from the portrait of her beautiful mother to the urn containing her remains. Her father says they can leave when she's ready, but Lenya calls out to him, stopping him. Lenya looks at Maximilian with concern and asks if he and his wife regretted that she was born. A young Ed chides a young Lenya for not watching the entire Crystal of Remembrance, but she admits she was too moved to continue past the halfway point. Maximilian sighs, explaining that Ed's mother, Lilia, was barely conscious after giving birth to Lenya. In a memory, a radiant, red-haired Lilia smiles lovingly as she cradles her newborn baby daughter. Maximilian confesses to Lenya that he initially had regrets, but they all vanished the moment he held her in his arms for the first time. The weight of the memory hangs between them as Maximilian turns his back to Lenya. Lenya looks down, quietly processing the emotional revelation about her birth and her parents' feelings. Standing before a beautiful portrait of Lilia, Maximilian and Lenya share a moment of quiet remembrance. As time passes, a narrative reveals that Lenya eventually had to leave the peaceful north. In a grand hall filled with luggage, Lenya apologizes to Lucas for the packing delay. Lucas asks about her fiancé, Ed, noting that he hasn't been seen for the past few days. Lenya explains that Ed left to hunt down someone named Isis and plans to meet them at the palace later. Recalling their recent passionate kiss, she admits to herself that the resulting awkwardness is why she's been avoiding him. Lenya looks away with a sigh, lost in her complicated feelings for Ed. Elsewhere, a cloaked Ed sighs in frustration, wondering about the speed of his elusive quarry. The narration explains that Isis, a red-haired, shape-shifting woman, has been expertly evading the Empire's hunters. Having tracked his target, Ed stands before a wooden door, his presence glowing with power. Now inside, he wonders why Isis would choose such a conspicuous entrance to a hideout. Ed reaches out to a shimmering, ornate mirror, which ripples at his touch. Stepping through the portal, he enters a grand hall where a reptilian man in a suit is waiting. The reptilian man bows, addressing Ed as the Lord of the Demon Tower and asking if he's seeking Isis. Ed curtly asks for news. The reptilian man informs Ed that he just received a message from Isis, much to Ed's surprise. Suddenly, a black snake materializes on the floor between them, causing both men to startle in surprise. Ed glares down at the creature, demanding to know where it's been, as the snake's thoughts express concern for Lord Adrian. Dismissing the snake's excuses as lame, a furious Ed summons powerful magic in his hand. The snake projects its thoughts, insisting it acted because the woman, Lenya, was confusing Lord Adrian. Ed's hand closes around the snake's shadowy form as he angrily questions if it acted without his permission. The snake warns that if they don't eliminate her, Ed will be destroyed by the feelings he's wasting on her. The snake's disembodied voice urges him not to repeat the tragedy of someone named Natera. In a flashback, the snake recalls how Lady Natera believed in coexisting with humans, only to lose her demon identity in the process. Ed reflects that his mother was indeed a rare pacifist among the demon tribe, a choice that led to a tragic end. He remembers how the Emperor betrayed his mother upon discovering her identity, sealing her powers and turning her into a helpless doll. The snake warns Ed not to make the same mistake as his mother, whose life he mourned before he even came of age. The snake reveals it is sneaking into the Imperial Castle, a move that surprises Ed. Its plan, the snake explains, is to locate the hidden key, and it asks for a little more time. As Ed silently listens, the snake warns him not to be fooled by his emotions, reminding him of the other key he is searching for. Wreathed in flames, Ed dismisses the warning, stating he doesn't need to be told and that the snake gets on his nerves. The reptilian man rushes to Ed, breathlessly, delivering an urgent message from someone named Killian. Ed's expression darkens as he learns that Crown Prince Nils is at the Imperial Palace to meet with Lady Lenya. The scene pans over the sprawling Imperial Palace at dusk. Inside, a nervous attendant urges a man with dark hair, Killian, to read a message quickly. Two maids burst into the room in a panic, shouting that the Crown Prince is heading for Lady Lenya's room, shocking Killian. The frantic maids explain the prince intends to inspect his brother's choice of woman, prompting Killian to resolve to stop him before Ed arrives. A blonde-haired man rushes in, shouting about trouble, and an exasperated Killian asks what new crisis has emerged. Killian looks horrified as he learns that Lady Lenya will be arriving at the palace soon, realizing the situation is about to explode. A grand carriage soars through the evening sky, making its way towards the palace. Inside, a pensive Lenya notes that her companion, Lucas, has already disembarked in the city center. With a gentle jolt, the horse-drawn carriage lands gracefully in the palace courtyard. A brown-haired maid greets a pink-haired woman in a dark dress, exclaiming that it's been a while. The maid urgently stops the pink-haired woman from going inside, but she asks what's going on. With a worried expression, the maid explains that Prince Nils has come to check her room, shocking the woman. The maid adds that his purpose is to ensure she's not living too luxuriously, which the pink-haired woman finds unbelievable. Thinking Prince Nils is rude, the pink-haired woman storms past her concerned maid, who calls out for her to stop. Inside a lavish room, a blonde-haired man assures a terrified maid that he's just looking around. The man is introduced as Crown Prince Nils, Ed's half-brother, who strikes a thoughtful pose. In a flashback, a blonde, goateed man orders Nils to go to the Imperial Palace and find Ed's fiancée. The goateed man sternly commands Nils to investigate her discreetly and bring her back if she's found. Back in the present, Nils stands at a desk in the room. As Nils opens a drawer, he muses on how worked up the Duke gets over Mont, wondering about their past. He finds a stack of letters sealed with red wax inside the desk drawer. With a condescending smile, Nils assumes Ed would have chosen a shabby, dispossessed woman. A voice calls out to "Your Royal Highness," and Nils turns to see Lenya has just entered the room. Lenya angrily demands to know what he is doing in her room, while a shocked Nils thinks that Ed is marrying a fine jewel. Filled with rage, Nils silently vows that he will never forgive him. Nils asks if she is his brother's fiancée, and she formally introduces herself as Lenya von Mont. After a slight cough, Nils apologizes, but Lenya retorts that he should be sorry for breaking into her room. Nils laughs and admits that he's not happy about the situation either. Lenya watches him with a wary and unsettled expression. Nils offers a formal apology for recent events, stating it's nice to finally meet her. He smiles confidently at her, with his arms crossed. Lenya informs him that Prince Ed will be back soon, prompting Nils to question if she can't function without her husband. Lenya feels pressured. Startled by his forwardness, Lenya thinks he's good at manipulating her, while Nils smiles and asks if he startled her by being too direct. Waving goodbye, Nils says he was just kidding and will see her later, leaving Lenya to worry about the Emperor's animosity toward her father. With renewed determination, Lenya decides they should go now. Now, in a formal blue dress, Lenya walks with Nils through a magnificent palace hall. As they continue, a nervous Lenya remarks on the grandeur of the Imperial Palace. Nils gestures toward a grand set of doors, announcing that they have arrived. Lenya stands anxiously before the open doors, peering into the room beyond. She enters to find a blonde, goateed man and a brown-haired woman seated at a table, waiting for her. Looking at the portrait of the regal man and then the man himself, Lenya wonders why she was brought here. Lenya introduces herself with a graceful curtsy, but the woman smiles and tells her to be less formal. Surprised, the woman already calls her by her first name. Lenya thanks her. Lenya observes a tired maid and notes that the palace seems to neglect its servants. She tells the seated couple that she understands their concern over accepting an unknown daughter-in-law. The blonde man corrects her, saying that's a mistake, leaving Lenya confused. He clarifies that his concern is not about the family, but about her. The man reveals that Ed harbors a deep-seated hatred that he conceals from everyone. He admits he can't blame Ed for his hatred because he discriminated against him, making Lenya look down in sorrow. The man, sipping his tea, asks if she knows that Adrian hides his true feelings behind a smile. He explains he is worried about her and questions if she can handle someone so unstable. Lenya realizes, with a shock, that he summoned her just to persuade her not to marry Ed. A flashback shows Ed using his magic. As narration explains, he fulfilled an impossible task, making the marriage promise unbreakable. The attempts to destroy the marriage are driven by one thing: fear. The woman asks Lenya if she is being forced into the marriage, explaining the Emperor fears Ed gaining the Duke's power. She leans in menacingly, asking if Ed threatened her, which makes Lenya think about how kind Ed has been, despite their constant interference. Clutching her dress tightly, Lenya firmly tells them not to speak about Ed that way. With a determined gaze, Lenya assures them she appreciates their concern, but is fine. The woman acknowledges their good relationship, but subtly warns that the future is uncertain. The brown-haired woman sneers, declaring that the darkness inside people will always reveal its ugliness. Lenya retorts that a man's darkness only surfaces when he's been hunted, vowing to accept Ed's darkness regardless. The woman is stunned into silence by Lenya's fierce and unexpected defense. The blonde man laughs, admitting he was overly cautious and acknowledging Lenya's strength to face any challenge. As Lenya curtsies to leave, the man offers his help anytime, and she thanks him for his concern. After she's gone, the man remarks on her cleverness, while Nils agrees it's expected of Mont's blood. The woman muses that Lenya is too good for Ed and would be a better match for Nils to strengthen their lineage. The blonde, goateed man pinches the bridge of his nose, looking tired as the woman continues her plotting. He thinks that if Lenya becomes Nils's companion, it might ease Nils's anxiety about the Duke, recalling an accident during the Demon War. A flashback reveals a battlefield, where he realizes the Duke would have become emperor if not for that incident. A red-haired maid suddenly trips, shattering a teacup on the floor with a crash. The brown-haired woman coldly asks what she's doing, as the trembling maid apologizes for hurting her hand. Calling her careless, the woman dismisses the maid, who offers another apology before cleaning up the mess. The red-haired maid walks away, and the woman watches her go with a thoughtful, suspicious expression. The woman wonders if she's ever seen that maid before, as the maid glances back with a sinister glare. While walking outside, Lenya notices Nils following her, and wonders what he's doing. Turning to face him, she asks if he is going to the gardens, but he replies he just wanted to give her a lift. He smiles slyly, pointing out that since she came with him, she has no way to get back. Ugh, Lenya sighs in frustration, recalling a memory of riding a toy horse as a child, while narration explains Nils' familia has arrived. Suddenly, both Lenya and Nils look up, startled by an unexpected arrival in the garden. With a powerful swoosh, Ed descends from the sky on dark wings, his arrival announced by a stunned onlooker. As he lands, a shocked Lenya says she can't believe he's here so soon, while Nils watches from the side. Ed instructs Lenya to return to the palace, but she grabs his arm, insisting she's already spoken with them. Unable to refuse his weak expression, Lenya is led away on horseback. As she rides away, Lenya looks downcast, thinking she had hoped Ed would be happy to see her. She wonders why he looks so hurt, as a pained Ed stands alone amidst a bed of dark roses. Back in the Imperial Palace, Lenya's voice echoes as she calls out for Killian. Lenya urgently asks Killian if Ed has returned, while a flashback shows a tense confrontation between Ed and Nils. Killian hesitates before informing a surprised Lenya that His Highness does not wish to see anyone today. Frustrated, Lenya demands to know if it's her fault for going to the palace alone, but Killian assures her it is not. Killian apologizes for being unable to explain, stating Ed needs time, leaving Lenya to wonder why he looked at her with such pain. She vividly recalls Ed's pained and conflicted expression from the garden. A maid pours tea while explaining that Ed's dislike for the royal family is greater than they had imagined. The brown-haired maid reports that Ed returned less than 30 minutes after Lenya had departed. She continues her report, stating that when Ed learned where Lenya was from Killian, his mood soured. Upon hearing the news, Ed was left standing with a pale, furious expression on his face. The maid advises Lenya not to visit the imperial palace anymore, and a somber Lenya agrees. With a determined look, Lenya clenches her fist, steeling her resolve. The scene transitions to a wedding, where Lenya walks down a flower-adorned aisle towards the groom. As she proceeds down the aisle, she laments that they haven't spoken since that day in the garden. Dressed in her beautiful wedding gown and holding a bouquet, Lenya maintains a somber and distant expression. At the altar, Ed stands in his formal attire, extending a hand to his bride. Lenya thinks about how long it's been since they've seen each other and notes his lack of a smile. Ed takes her hand, their gazes meeting with a shared seriousness as they prepare to be wed. Hand in hand, the couple walks together toward the priest waiting at the altar. Standing beside her, Ed quietly tells her she can just pretend if she doesn't feel like it. Startled by his words, Lenya looks up, just as he leans in, and surprises her with a kiss. Her hands tighten around her bouquet as she's caught off guard by the sudden kiss. Ed gently holds her face, deepening the kiss as they stand together at the altar. With a look of sincere remorse, the silver-haired groom apologizes. A beautiful wedding scene unfolds as a narrator declares the pink-haired woman and silver-haired man are now truly husband and wife. The scene shifts to a grand building at night as snow begins to fall gently. At the wedding reception, Lenya smiles and graciously thanks guests who praise the perfect and lovely event. Overwhelmed by the social demands, Lenya internally screams for everyone to go away. Seeking refuge, she leans against a chair in a quiet corner of the hall, desperate for a break. A man's voice suddenly asks if it's tough, causing her to look up in surprise. She is shocked to find her father and brother Nick approaching, her father remarking that marriage is what it's all about. Her father congratulates her and offers a small gift, hoping it will make her feel better. Inside is a beautiful golden ring, which is identified as a memento belonging to Lilia. Lenya stares at her mother's ring, her hand trembling with emotion. Her father and brother warmly reassure her that no matter what, they are family and will always be there for her. Overcome with emotion, Lenya tearfully whispers, "Father, brother." A red-haired man suddenly appears, offering to lend a hand as well, leaving Lenya confused. The handsome red-haired man, noted to resemble her mother, makes a dazzling entrance. Lenya wonders if he is her brother Maximilian, and he cheekily confirms his identity, boasting about his good looks. A flashback shows her family leaving as Nick holds a baby Lenya. In the present, she seems annoyed, thankful she's never met Maxim before. In a chibi-style exchange, a tearful Maximilian asks why she's so cold, and Lenya explains she was just surprised after so long. Maximilian asks if he can stay at the palace for a few days, to which Lenya questions his meaning. He feigns distress, claiming that due to recent events, he has no place to sleep. Exasperated, Lenya questions why he doesn't just go to their vacation home in the capital. Her father suddenly shouts for her to let her brother stay, shocking Lenya with his forceful command. Maximilian cheekily tells her he'll wait while she talks to her husband, reminding her that it is their wedding night. Alone on a balcony, Lenya sighs in exhaustion, lamenting the chaos of the day and the fact Ed is still nowhere to be seen. A voice asks who she's looking for, and she turns to find the orange-haired man, who smirks and tells her Ed isn't there. He calmly explains that he has summoned Ed to another location, leaving Lenya looking apprehensive. The orange-haired man, his purple eyes glowing, repeats that Ed is not here. He confirms once more that he summoned Ed away, as Lenya stands alone and vulnerable before him. He approaches, explaining he wanted to talk just to her, and she curtly demands to know what he wants. Internally, Lenya fumes, questioning why this rude man wants to speak with her when they have nothing to discuss. She tries to leave, stating she'll return with her husband, but he stops her, claiming he was only trying to show he cares. He leans in close and asks if she wants to know what truly happened to Duke Mont during the Demon War, stunning her into silence. He reveals he knows she searched his desk for war research, but he has the real story from his father, since the unrecorded incident had few witnesses. With a malicious smile, he taunts her, suggesting the truth about her father is probably too much for her to handle. Lenya glares back defiantly, internally scoffing at his condescending words as a dark determination fills her. The scene concludes with a stylized title card. A narration begins, explaining that in ancient times, different worlds coexisted until a crack formed between them. During a time when the Celestials were investigating another world, the demon tribe took advantage of their absence. The narration continues, stating that the demon tribe launched a violent war against the human world. To fight the demonic invasion, humans and spirits formed contracts, giving rise to powerful spirit knights who played a major role in the war. A hero, Duke Mont, emerged at 18, turning the tide of the war and ultimately leading the Imperials to victory. Lenya questions why her father, despite such incredible achievements, was only made the Lord of the Northern Border. Nils explains that had things gone differently, her father might have become the Emperor himself. He delivers a shocking revelation. At the war's decisive moment, the Duke's familia went berserk and slaughtered all their allies. With the passageway collapsing, the Celestials couldn't stop the demon remnants from escaping into the chaotic night. Nils explains that while demons and spirits vanished, the spirit contract remained, allowing Imperials to be born with a familia. Lenya clenches her dress, thinking that the Emperor who harbors jealousy for the Duke would surely not tell the whole truth. A narration explains that with all human witnesses dead and the demons fled, no one could have seen what truly happened. The scene of fallen soldiers highlights the narrator's point. It would be easy for the Emperor to twist the facts. Nils seems to read her mind, stating that the rational Duke's familia killed everyone, leaving Lenya stunned by his perception. Nils' story continues, revealing that some demons sided with humans during the war, their motives a complete mystery. He theorizes these demons were spies who secretly cursed her father's familia, causing the rampage, and then offers to help her find the truth. Leaning in with a sinister smile, Nils whispers that he knows who the descendant of that very demon is, leaving Lenya speechless. Lenya realizes the Emperor's entire plan was to manipulate her father into hating the demon tribe, and, consequently, his own half-demon son, Ed. Standing firm, Lenya reaffirms her conviction that Ed's mother was innocent, and that she doesn't care about his lineage. As she turns to leave, a flustered Nils demands to know if she's really going to accept the official story that her family caused the tragedy. He forcefully grabs her arm, insisting that it's obvious demons were involved in what happened. Losing his composure, Nils screams the shocking truth at her. Ed is the son of a demon. With a crazed grin, he taunts her, asking how it feels to be with a man who has demon blood running through his veins. Crack! Ed suddenly appears out of nowhere, landing a powerful blow on Nils and sending him staggering back. Lenya gasps Ed's name in terror as she sees the pure, murderous rage darkening his face. Shit! Nils curses from the floor, stunned by Ed's sudden and violent intervention. Wiping his mouth, Nils glares up with a bruised cheek and seethes, "How dare you, you demon tribe bastard!" Ed stands over him with a chilling aura, as Nils scoffs that attacking the crown prince proves no amount of fancy clothes can hide his lowly origins. With a malicious grin, Nils draws his sword, stating that this works out perfectly, as he's wanted a reason to deal with Ed for a long time. He lunges forward, shouting that he's going to cut off Ed's head right here and now. Nils freezes in shock as his blade stops just inches from Ed's neck, held back by an unseen force. "Black magic!" Nils yells, accusing Ed of showing his true demon colors and claiming his mother used the same dark arts to mislead his father. Ed glares coldly, reminding Nils that he had promised to kill him the next time he got carried away. With his eyes glowing behind red lens glasses, Ed summons a swirling vortex of dark energy and unleashes it at Nils. "Ed, stop!" Lenya screams, throwing herself between them in a desperate attempt to stop the deadly attack. As Lenya holds him back, Ed's furious expression wavers for a moment, his gaze softening as he looks down at her. Gah! The dark magic continues its assault, causing Nils to choke as if an invisible hand is crushing his throat. Gasping for air, Nils desperately coughs and calls for the royal guards to help him. With an indifferent flick of his wrist, Ed sends Nils flying backward, his sword clattering uselessly on the stone floor. Ed gently touches Lenya's face, his voice soft with regret, as he tells her he wishes she'd never found out. He tenderly holds her chin, looking into her eyes as the heavy truth of his identity settles between them. Lenya turns her head away, insisting she doesn't care about his origins, before accusing him of lying to her. Her voiceover continues, stating that he has never once shown her his true feelings. Her accusation hangs in the air, and she stares with wide, shocked eyes at the unspoken pain in his expression. The two stand apart in a beautiful garden, the emotional distance between them wider than ever. Ed closes the distance, leaning in towards a flustered and confused Lenya. To Lenya's horror, Ed suddenly collapses, slumping against her. With Ed unconscious on the ground, Lenya cries out his name in sheer panic. The scene shifts to the Grand Palace as narration explains the incident was resolved more smoothly than expected. The Crown Prince wakes up in bed and learns they covered for his absence by saying he drank too much, while Lenya watches over Ed, who has been asleep for 5 days. Feeling hopeless, Lenya worries as she recalls that neither doctors nor her own holy power could wake Ed. Her red-haired brother, Maximilian, enters the room and asks to have a word with her. Lenya asks if her father and Nick have gone, and Maximilian confirms they left him to look after her. Her father and Nick return to their territory, while a man named Lucas went back to the temple. Maximilian's expression turns serious as he tells Lenya there's something important he needs to ask her. He reveals that after hearing of her marriage, he hired a guild to investigate and discovered Ed's true, non-human origins, shocking Lenya. She realizes he came not because of debt collectors, but out of concern for her. He admits he lied, fearing she would send him away. Maximilian encourages her to stop handling things alone and to rely on him, her older brother, for help. "Brother, please help me," Lenya asks earnestly, and he pats her head with a warm smile, promising that he will. The scene introduces 3 mysterious figures, their faces obscured by the shadows of their black hoods. Standing with Lenya by Ed's bedside, the figures are revealed to be allies, as a narration explains Ed is undergoing a final demonic trial. An illustration shows Ed trapped by thorny roses, explaining that he must break free on his own to awaken his full power, or he will die. Despite the high stakes, Ed remains peacefully asleep, showing no signs of waking up. Maximilian questions Lenya's decision to interfere, warning her that the method she plans to use is extremely risky with a low chance of success. With a determined look, Lenya agrees to the risky procedure, deciding to enter Ed's dream. A hooded figure warns her that entry is only possible if Ed trusts her, otherwise his inner world will reject her. Lenya silently steels herself for the challenge ahead, her expression firm with resolve. As 2 hooded figures begin the ritual, Lenya stands in the magic circle and admits to herself that she's not confident, knowing failure is certain if Ed doesn't accept her. She clenches her fist, hardening her resolve to face whatever comes next. Lenya thinks that any pain she might feel is nothing compared to Ed's suffering, so she will not hesitate. Brilliant blue light envelops Lenya and Maximilian as the ritual to enter Ed's mind begins. The scene dissolves and reforms, transporting her through a shimmering doorway into another place. Lenya finds herself in a familiar, sparkling hallway, realizing with a start that she's inside the royal palace. A distant, piercing scream echoes through the corridor, startling her. Alerted by the cry, she dashes toward a set of open doors down the hall. Peeking inside, she's horrified to see a young Ed cradling his dying, blood-soaked mother, recognizing the traumatic memory instantly. Overwhelmed by the tragic sight, Lenya reaches out and whispers Ed's name. The memory suddenly shifts to a bright, flower-filled garden, where a smiling young Ed tells her he remembers seeing her 7 years ago. Just as quickly, the scene snaps back to the bloody room, where a terrified young Ed screams at her not to touch him. Lenya tries to break through to him, explaining that this is just a memory, and that his mother is already gone. In anguish, the young Ed screams that she's lying. He clings to his mother's body, refusing to believe she would ever leave him, as the memory begins to darken and fracture. The dream world shatters around her, and a shocked Lenya realizes with dismay that she's already failed. She grits her teeth, fighting to hold on as the dream violently rejects her presence. The scene shifts to another memory where a maid coldly tells a collapsed young Ed that the queen wants him dead. The maid smiles cruelly, asking him not to hate her as she blames his unholy demon blood for his fate. Lenya intervenes, forcefully shoving the surprised maid away, while the woman threatens her with the queen's wrath. Lenya yells "wait" just before a loud smack echoes through the room. Young Ed lies on the floor, panting and clutching his face where he was struck. Kneeling beside him, Lenya gently places a hand over his cheek, which begins to glow with healing magic. Lenya promises to protect him, but a wary Ed thinks she is lying and just wants to escape the unending nightmare. Pushing her hand away, a terrified young Ed accuses her of trying to kill him because of his demon blood. As the dream world shatters around them again, Lenya desperately reaches for Ed, insisting she is trying to help. Her surroundings change once more, and she finds herself standing alone in a dark, moonlit forest. An arrow suddenly flies through the darkness. Whiz, the arrow narrowly misses Lenya, embedding itself in a tree behind her as she and a young Ed look on in shock. A hand suddenly covers her mouth, and Ed's voice warns her to be quiet, as assassins are targeting them. Lenya looks at him, recognizing the same blank expression from their previous encounters. As she studies his emotionless face, the young Ed smirks, telling her that he remembers her. In a pleasant memory, Ed smiles, asking if she is the girl who visited him 7 years prior. Lenya wonders if he recalls everything from his dreams, even if he doesn't understand that none of it is real. Kneeling before him, she takes his hands and gently tells him that she is his future wife. Ed furiously rejects her, yanking his hands away and declaring he will never marry her. He suspiciously questions who she is and if the queen sent her, remarking on her unchanged appearance. Lenya calmly explains that they are in his dreams and again states that she is his future wife, here to save him. Leaning in, Ed mockingly challenges her to prove she's his wife by becoming his partner and pleasing him. In response, Lenya grabs his face and pinches both of his cheeks hard. She pulls his face from side to side, calling him a pervert and telling him to let her go. Ed sighs and announces his plan to hide in the villa by the river, prompting Lenya to ask if he means the one he knows. Lenya urgently warns him not to go to the villa, as the queen's assassins will be waiting for him there. Ed demands to know how she could possibly know about the villa, while Lenya realizes the Chamberlain has already betrayed him. A flashback reveals the aftermath of the assassination attempt, where a traumatized Ed was found stabbed and bleeding. Ed invites her to the villa to see a doctor, but Lenya desperately repeats her warning that he will die if he goes. Without another word, Ed swiftly hoists a surprised Lenya over his shoulder and begins to walk away. He ignores her struggles, telling her to be quiet, as it's still dangerous while carrying her through the woods. Arriving inside, Lenya looks around the empty room and sarcastically asks where the danger is. Bam! In a flash, Lenya sprints past a bewildered Ed. As she dashes up the stairs, a panicked Ed reaches out, yelling after her, "Slam!" She reaches a set of doors just in time to see them swing shut. Pounding on the door, she commands it to open, but quickly realizes it's impossible. Her resolve hardens as she declares that this time, she will be the one to save him. Inside the room, a masked assassin demands the door be opened, while Lenya listens from the other side. With determined eyes, she recalls her recent marriage to him. The hooded assassin readies his sword, announcing that his target is the prince's head. Facing the assassin's blade, Lenya steels herself, knowing it will hurt but is necessary to free Ed from his traumatic memories. She stands firm, desperately shouting for Ed to escape now. Ugh. The assassin grabs her by the throat, threatening to kill her first. She gasps in pain as the blade cuts into her, realizing the agony is real, even in a dream. Crash! Suddenly, the young Ed smashes through a window with a heavy object. Blood splatters violently across the scene. Ed's blood-soaked hand grips a sword, standing over the fallen assassin. He turns in horror to see Lenya collapsing with a fatal wound to her neck. Hey, why would you sacrifice yourself? Ed screams in anguish and disbelief. Lenya offers a weak, bloody smile, reassuring him that she's not really dying because it's only a dream. As she fades, Ed's bloody hand touches her cheek, desperately begging her not to go. His voice cracks with sorrow as he pleads with her not to leave him alone again. With her final moments of consciousness, she gently tells him to wake up from his dream with her. She asks him to remember who she is as his eyes flash with a brilliant, dawning light. The dreamscape transforms into a beautiful sunset. As an adult, Ed looks down at Lenya from atop a winged horse. A cascade of memories floods his mind, embracing her, kissing her, as he finally whispers her name. The vision ends, showing them both lying peacefully in the magical circle, surrounded by glowing flowers. A brilliant flash of light bursts forth as Lenya's eyes snap open in the real world. Seeing her awake, Maximilian and the others rush forward, anxiously asking if Ed is awake too. The scene shifts to a peaceful grove where the real, awakened Ed tells Lenya he remembers everything from the dream. He sincerely thanks her for saving him, and apologizes for having avoided her recently. Ed confesses he was scared that if she learned the truth about the royal family, she would be disappointed in him. Lenya looks away, flustered and unsure how to respond to his sudden honesty. He sadly notes that she has always hidden her true feelings from him. Taking her hands, Ed promises he won't run away anymore and will face her openly from now on. He leans in and kisses her tenderly, asking her to go home with him. The scene shifts to a grand, sprawling estate under a starry night sky. Elsewhere, the crown prince holds his throbbing head, confused about why he feels so dizzy after only 2 drinks and can't remember the wedding. The red-haired maid approaches, asking if he's all right. He waves her off, saying he needs to lie down and questions when she arrived, as he thought he was alone. She then abruptly asks his opinion of Prince Adrian. Thump. Startled by her question, his mind is suddenly filled with a terrifying, intrusive thought. I want to kill him. Nils stares ahead in wide-eyed horror, completely shocked by his own violent impulse. The maid smirks, noting her medicine is working, and offers to help him ruin the prince in exchange for the quote, bewitched spring key. The story returns to Lenya and Ed, who are now walking with the red-haired man. Lenya asks him to slow down. The red-haired man apologizes, explaining that as the guildmaster, he cannot stay away for long. Lenya looks downcast that he has to leave so soon, but he promises he'll see her again. He gives her a reassuring pat on the head with a kind smile. He places a small, ornate key into her waiting hand. Lenya's eyes sparkle with recognition as she holds the key, suddenly remembering its significance. The guildmaster laughs, saying he can finally return it now that she has married the love of her life. Maximilian embraces Lenya, thanking her for being a good sister and taking care of him. Waving goodbye from a grand staircase, Maximilian tells Lenya to take care as she wishes him well. Realizing the key's size, Lenya kneels by her luggage, searching for the lock it belongs to. She finds a small, locked wooden box from her luggage and realizes the key is for it. Opening the box, she discovers a glowing orb and wonders if it's a crystal of remembrance. As Lenya holds the orb, it erupts in a brilliant flash of light. A vision appears of a young, crying girl, whom she recognizes as herself as a child. A young boy with light hair appears in a flower garden, asking why she's crying. She realizes it's Ed. The memory focuses on young Ed's curious and gentle expression. Back in the present, a shocked Lenya questions if she's witnessing the memory of how she and Ed first met. In the memory, young Ed kneels, identifying the crying girl as Duke Monferio's daughter and asking why she's alone. Through tears, she begins to explain that her father told her something terrible. Why? She wails that if she isn't quiet, she'll have to marry the mean second prince, stunning a shocked Ed. She sobs about the rumors of Prince Adrian threatening servants, while Ed internally thinks he has no interest in that. A flustered young Ed scratches his head, unsure how to respond to the rumors about himself. He offers her a pink flower, explaining that Prince Adrian isn't a bad guy and only threatens people to make them listen. He cryptically adds that it's no wonder the prince is strict, as someone might always be trying to kill him. Holding the flower, a tearful young Lenya worries if the prince's life is in danger, and Ed confirms there are bad people in the world. She asks if he is the prince's attendant, but he explains he's from a provincial estate, and she happily realizes they are both there for the festival. He shyly agrees to stay with her until the evening, and they hold hands while walking through the garden. The memory shows a happy moment as young Ed places a flower crown on a beaming Lenya's head. They run playfully together down a beautiful, flower-lined stone path. As the sun sets, they stand together on a balcony, looking out over the glowing city. Later, sitting at a table, Ed says it's about time for him to leave and reaches for her hand. He gently takes her hand in his. They continue holding hands as he prepares to say goodbye. Looking him in the eye, she suddenly proposes they get married in the future, leaving him utterly speechless. She explains she'd be fine marrying him, since he's not a bad person, and they could play together every day. A blushing, sweat-dropping Ed is left completely stunned and at a loss for words. He turns away slightly, telling her that he can't make people happy. He asks her to remember his face in case he proposes one day, and she wants to say no, but she passionately shouts that she doesn't want to. The memory fades, and Lenya sits in her room, holding the now dim orb and asking if that was all. She realizes their story didn't begin on the battlefield. That was just where the original story began. Lenya understands that while Ed had forgotten their first meeting, she had always remembered him. As she places the crystal back in its box, a faint sound from above catches her attention. Hey! A massive pillar of water suddenly erupts from the ceiling, flooding her room. She stares in wide-eyed horror at the sudden disaster. A maid checks if Lenya is okay, while a man with black hair reports that a water pipe above her bedroom has burst. When the man says her drawers must be moved, Lenya panics, remembering the divorce papers hidden inside, and insists on moving her things herself. Ed arrives, assessing the damage and remarking that the situation is more serious than he initially thought. Stunned, Lenya questions why he called her wife, to which he cheekily replies that it's fine since they're married now. Ed sighs that there are leaks in other rooms as well, leaving Lenya shocked at the scale of the disaster. A proposition hangs in the air. She will have to sleep in his room for the night. Ed grins slyly, pointing a finger in the air as he confirms the suggestion. A bolt of lightning seems to strike a horrified Lenya as she processes his words. Lounging seductively on a bed surrounded by roses, a robed Ed invites her to come over so he can hold her and keep her warm.